Recording in progress.
Good morning, members of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning, DM and Minister and officials from the department. Chairperson is on her way in. If you'll just give it 2 more minutes, thank you.
Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to the Department of Basic Education as led by the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and DG and the team. And of course, a warm good morning to our support team and all the stakeholders that have joined us on this platform. You are welcome to our second last meeting just before we finish the term. And apologies for just logging in a little bit late. I was struggling with my gadget to log in, but I finally got it right. Mr. Brown, can we kindly flag the agenda whilst we're doing that? Honorable members, as you would know, as per our program, in today's meeting, we are going to be engaging on the Q1 and Q2 report from the department. And as you would understand that these two reports are very important. They are very important because they assist us as a committee to ensure that, or they enable us to ensure that there is effective oversight, timely oversight on the work of the department. But also they are the most instrumental tools to ensure accountability, transparency, and effective oversight. The quarterly reports allows us to track performance against targets, to monitor the spending of resources, allocated resources, but also this two reports facilitates a platform for engagements on corrective measures if there is a need for corrective measures. But they also assist us as a portfolio committee to understand the challenges so that we can be able to empower or input in future planning. And for the public at home, we know that these quarter reports really fosters a sense of trust and transparency. So we are discussing very important statutory reports today. And we hope that members have had time to really go through and apprise themselves with those two reports so that we are able to effectively participate and effectively discharge our responsibilities. I think it will be important for us to also note the commencement of the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children that is commencing today. Of course, our motto as a country and as well as Parliament has always been that we undergo 365 days of no violence, of activism for no violence against women and children in our country. And we must welcome the President's declaration of GBV and femicide as a state, as a disaster in our country. And we hope that from government side, more efforts and more allocation of resources of personnel is going to be imparted in the fight against GBVF. Of course, we are also a sector that is severely affected by these very acts of GBV and the numbers or the rising cases of GBV because children are impacted in the majority. Young women and women are impacted by this disaster, the scourge of GBVF. And as a result, we should, because we are activists in our different platforms, we should ensure that we raise the awareness and we participate fully in this 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children campaign. With that said, honorable members, from our side, we have seen that there has not been significant disruptions to this year's NSC examinations, and that's something that we must welcome. And of course, we're still going to receive a comprehensive report on this, but I think it is important that we welcome the fact that from where we are sitting, there hasn't been any significant incidences that have negatively impacted the writing of the examinations by student. We are hoping, of course, that the department will be able to take us through briefly on how the marking process is unfolding and if it has started. We are coming to the end of our term as well as Parliament, and this is our second meeting before we close. We understand that all of us, of course, are experiencing fatigue, but it is very important that we stay the course and we continue with our work, and we also employ the very same energy that we've employed throughout the year on these last two meetings, because they are equally important. Those were just my opening remarks, members, to say you're welcome to our meeting. And as you can see on our screen, the agenda has been flighted. Mr. Brown, can you please just assist us to deal with the attendance register and the apologies, if there are any apologies, before we hand over to the department?
No, thank you, Chairperson. Present as yourself, Honourable Maimela, I have Honourable Kaban. I have Honourable Low, Honourable Magagula, I have Honourable Sharif, Honourable Jordan, Honourable Mkize, and Honourable Shikwambana. I hope I'm not missing anybody, but members will just indicate. Chairperson, there's been no apologies other than from the Office of the Minister. I know Minister has indicated that she needs to attend a cabinet commitment and has requested to depart a little earlier than normal for her to attend to that engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for those. Honourable members, is there a member that is on the platform that we have not acknowledged? Okay. With that said, honourable members, I think we should swiftly move to our next item on the agenda, which will be the presentation by the department minister. You are welcome, and the team and the deputy minister and the DG. We are now handing over to you to lead the department in this presentation. Over.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. A very good morning to you, honourable members, to you, Chair, colleagues, and of course the Deputy Minister. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the department's performance for the first and second quarters of 2025-2026 financial year. I think this reporting cycle is absolutely critical because it reflects not only the pace of our implementation, but also the reforms that we are driving to strengthen accountability, improve data quality, and ensure that the work of the department directly advances learner outcomes. I also want to join you, Chairperson, as you have acknowledged the commencement of 16 days of activism against the violence against women and children. As you've indicated, our schools have become targets of such incidents, and really I want to assure the committee that we are doing and working as hard as we possibly can to improve our systems to make sure that we protect children from sexual predators in particular, that we're working very hard to make sure that we're getting our systems right so that we can catch people who shouldn't be in presence or at least working with children, because this becomes quite important. And also just would like this to thank the committee for your support during this time as we've been undertaking the NSC exams. As you've indicated, Chair, we've had minimal disruptions, but again, just wanting to thank the support of the members during this time. Chair, the committee will also note this year marks an important transition in the way in which we plan and we report. The department has increased the number of quarterly indicators from 8 in the previous year to 24 in 2025-26, which is a 200% increase in quarter one and 190% increase in quarter two. And we've improved alignment also with the medium-term development plan and the action plan to 2029. And this requires us to have more frequent and more rigorous performance tracking. This is also a deliberate shift towards transparency and more granular monitoring. Now, across the 5 programs of the department, there are several key highlights that stand out. In Program 1, the department submitted the annual financial statements on time, the workplace skills plan, and the annual training report were finalized, and internal capacity building programs have been continuing at scale. At administrative level, the department is strengthening strategic planning and monitoring tools to support data-driven decision-making. If we're looking at Program 2, progress was made on entrepreneurship education, reading norms, the revised history curriculum, which has now been submitted. The second Trans Matric program, which is supporting more than 5,000 learners, and workbooks for 2025 have been delivered across all provinces, which is a significant logistical milestone ahead of next year. When we look at Program 3, Chair, which is Teachers and Human Resources, important work has continued on the post-provisioning management, teacher development, the Funza Lushaka placements, and implementation of the quality management system. Notably, the standard operating procedure for dealing with educators appearing on the National Sexual Offenders Register and the National Child Protection Register has now also been rolled out to district managers, reinforcing our commitment for learner safety, especially in light of this committee's ongoing work on sexual offences in schools. Under Program 4, the department completed preparations for the new Grade 4 Mother Tongue-based bilingual education assessment, completed verification of early national assessment dataset, and strengthened our SA SAMS data quality controls. Infrastructure work also progressed, including sanitation projects, new classrooms to support the 582 underperforming secondary schools. I also think perhaps, Chair, it's quite important to report to the committee that yesterday we had our very first maths exam that has been done in bilingual papers across all 9 provinces, which is a significant milestone, members, in terms of our fight against illiteracy, particularly in terms of strengthening the foundations of learning. The learners will be writing, I think, mathematics. Yesterday it was natural sciences, and today they will be writing the mathematics paper. And then under Program 5, the National School Nutrition Program remained fully operational. Our monitoring was conducted across 6 provinces, and the revised data, the revised DBE and SAPS safety protocol was signed, which is also an important milestone in strengthening the protective environment in schools. The monitoring of the National Safety Framework continued across all districts. Chair, in terms of expenditure, the department spent 21 billion in the first half of the year, with the majority, more than 85%, allocated to transfer payments and conditional grants, which is required by the education sector. Variances recorded in the presentation relate to primarily the timing of transfers and procurement processes, and these will be addressed in detail by the team as they are doing the briefing. While progress has been made, we acknowledge the challenges that remain. These include ongoing budget pressures impacting on infrastructure delivery, norms and standards, data quality issues in some provinces, system recruitment and retention pressures, and the need for strengthened psychosocial support for learners. The department is addressing these through targeted interventions, including our revised APP indicators, improved provincial support frameworks, and the introduction of a strengthened monitoring architecture. Chair, the committee's oversight is absolutely essential to our work as a department, and the department and the Deputy Minister and myself, we remain fully accountable to Parliament and engagement and constructive engagement with Parliament. I look forward to the committee's guidance and questions today. Now I'm going to hand over to the DG and the team to take us through the presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. DG, you can continue.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister. Chair, Ms. Mbonambe will take us through the performance information of Quarter 1 and Quarter 2. Mr. Kuno will round off with the financial update, focusing on Quarter 2, because the updated financials are on Q2. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister. Ms. Bonambe, let's start.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and the whole senior management of the DBE. I feel like Minister has covered almost the whole presentation, but however, I will still take you through the first part, which is the part A on performance, indicators, and targets. And also just to indicate that the activities of the department are structured into 5 programs, but Minister has already covered that as well. So on this slide, it's a comparison, which is also pretty much covered in terms of the Q1 for the previous financial year and Q1 of the current financial year, which is 25-26. And in both financial years, the department achieved 88% in terms of the performance, with one partially achieved and one not achieved in Program 2. And this slide is a representation of the same. It's just that this one is a pie chart. This slide is comparison of Q2, between Q2 of the previous financial year and Q2 of the current financial year. And we note also a decline in terms of the performance. In previous financial year, we were at 100%, and current financial year, 77%. And also to note, as Minister has indicated, the increase in the number of quarterly indicators from 8 in the previous financial year to 24 in the current financial year, which also contributes to the lower performance between the 2 financial years. Then 3 slides are just highlighting the oversight work done by the Minister, the DM, and also the DG, which includes the visit to partner or to the abroad countries, working on the agreements, but I will not go one by one. I can also highlight that this year has been a year where the G20, where the country was taking the G20 presidency. So there has been a number of meetings where DM has also made some speeches on that. And on this last slide, the DG, as we all know, is always in the provinces for the engagements, supporting the provinces, monitoring the curriculum, implementation and coverage, and also visit the camps. For instance, he visited the winter camps, and they were also engaged the engagement program to motivate the grade 12 learners as they were preparing for their October-November examinations, which are ending this week. I think Minister also covered the retabling of the APP to include or to align to the medium-term development plan. So these are the indicators which were added, which are also key. And these 3 slides are showing those indicators which have additionally added after the tabling of the APP. Maybe to go zoom into the programs, the performance. Programs 1, 3, and 5, all the quarterly indicators were achieved. I will maybe go into a few which were not achieved in programs 2 and programs 4. I'll start with the indicator 2.2.2, which is on slide 28. if Chair allows me, that I'm not really jumping, but all the others have been achieved. Can I? Yes. 2.2.2, this indicator monitoring the implementation of the incremental introduction of African languages. Target was 9 and achievement is 4, but it's important to indicate also to the members that as much as quarter two was not achieved, it was made up in the quarter one because we were supposed to be around 15 by quarter two. And it's not a justification, but the target was not achieved in Q2, but we at both quarters, we are on target to achieve by the end of the year. The next one is the 2.2.4 in the next slide, of which I think the same thing happened on this one, the multi-grade classes, which are monitored for implementing the multi-grade toolkit. More schools were monitored in quarter one, which means quarter one was overachieved. And then that made up for Q2, which was not, or which was missed by 2. So we missed that by a smaller margin of 2, but the program managers have confirmed that the target will be achieved by the end of the financial year. The next one is on the next slide, indicator 2.2.5, number of districts monitored on the implementation of the national reading strategy. Q1 was okay. Additional districts were monitored rather in quarter one. In quarter two, we missed the target by 1 district. Excuse me, and that was already made up because we're supposed to be at 5 districts in quarter two. But also the program is working on correcting that, because if we say the target is 3, then we have to achieve the target of 3. However, we are on target to achieve this by the end of the financial year. Then the indicator 2.4.1, which is on slide 3, number of subject specialists orientated in mother tongue-based bilingual education. The target for quarter two is 90, and the department achieved 72, and the shortfall is 18 subject specialists, and that was due to the capacity issues in the provinces where there were no specialists for maths, natural science and technology, and they were replaced by the teachers or the educators. So in that way, as much as they were orientated, but when we verified, we could not count them. They have attended or they have been orientated, but during verification process, we could not count those who are educators and not the specialists as such. The next indicator, 2.4.2, number of participants reached through advocacy sessions on mother tongue-based bilingual education. Target of 400, and the department achieved 389. And the target here could have been overachieved, but on verification also of the registers, the evidence, we found that some were missing, but we had more of the registers that could not meet the criteria in terms of verification. So the program is also rectifying this and also indicated that the targets will be achieved by the end of the financial year. I thought I should focus on those indicators where, excuse me, the department did not fully achieve. And the last one is indicator 4.3.1, which is on slide 53. Number of officials from districts that achieved below the national benchmark in the National Senior Certificate participating in a mentoring program. Target of 80 and the achievement is 45. It's a shortfall of 35 because the program could not reach one district because of the prior arrangements by the legislature. However, the program is working on achieving these targets also by the end of the financial year because it's a huge margin, which is 35. So, Chair, I think with your permission, that brings me to the end of the summary of the indicators. If it's not enough, but I feel Minister covered the summary very well, highlights per program, which I was also going to cover. I think it will be a repetition on my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kuno?
The next.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thanks. Good morning to Chairperson, members of the committee, Minister, DM, DG, and colleagues. I'll go through the financials similar to the non-financials. I think I'll go briefly through that as the Minister has touched on them. Our budget of 35 billion is divided into 85% being grants, conditional grants as well as transfers, and the balance, which is 15%, is what we use in the department, 5.3 billion. So basically, when we talk 35 billion, we must know that what we use within the department is just 5.3 billion. Next slide. Next slide, please.
I did move.
Oh, it's not moving.
Is it?
No, it's, oh, yes. It's there now. Yes, the budget, as I said, is 35 billion. So far, we've spent 59.2%. What we normally do, Chair and members, is that we gauge our spending against the age of the year. So, for example, if we, as we are reporting for half of the year, we gauge and say, the norm would be that if we spend far more than 50%, which is half of the year, or far less than 50%, then that should be explained. So, as you can see, we spent 60% or 59.2, which is 9% higher, but we're explaining it in the next slide. Next slide. Yes, on here we're showing that on program 2, the high spending is due to transfers to provincial education departments. The ECD budget or conditional grant was transferred, and that was because immediately after the minister's speech, there was additional money that was made available for early childhood development, which we then transferred to provinces. And then program 3, the high spending is because of the Funza Lushaka bursaries. The Funza Lushaka bursaries are transferred to universities at the beginning of the financial year. At the beginning of the financial year. So that's why you'd find that the spending on that part it's higher than the norm. Then on program 4, higher spending is also because of the transfer of the EIG conditional grant. Basically, transfers to provinces are made based on a pre-agreed tranches. So you'd find that the tranches that we transfer are not necessarily going on a straight line basis. That's similarly to program 5, which is the education infrastructure, enrichment services. It's because of the transfer it's because of the transfer of the NSNP, the NSNPs that's previously called the feeding scheme funds to provinces. Next slide. Chair, this is the same information as the previous one. The only difference is that the previous slide was per program, whereas this one is per economic classification. We can go to the next slide. Yes, on that previous slide, we're showing spending which is slightly less than the 50% at 39%. So it's because of the invoices not yet received in relation to delivery of workbooks volume 1 for 2026 academic year. And then with regards to the very low spending on infrastructure, it's because the infrastructure grant has been wrapped up in the current year to be combined with the transfer that we made, the grant that we make transfers of the EIG, Education Infrastructure Grant. So the projects are being wrapped up. We are not appointing new projects. That's why the spending is low. And then there's also a matter of the conditional grant. The transfers for the conditional grants were processed accordingly. So that's why you would find that in some cases, as I said earlier, the spending on conditional grants is higher than the norm because the transfers happen according to a pre-agreed schedule. Next slide. This one, Chair, is the conditional grants, as I've just mentioned. As you can see, transfer 62% of the conditional grants, which is above the 50% norm. But I've spoken to that already. Next slide. And then on this one is other transfers, Chair. We transfer to non-profit organizations, to foreign governments, and to households. So most, actually, all these grants are transferred in terms of as and when the claims come through from the affected entities. So that's why you would see in some cases there's zero transfers. In others, you'd find that. For example, AFTRA is the highest one at 84%. And then as you can see, 100% of Funza Lushaka falls under households at the very bottom there. Chair, I've already spoken to that. Next slide. We've got an item, Chair, in the slide which is called households, and you'd see that it shows as if it's overspending. Maybe if you can go back to that while I'm speaking to it, Nosipo, you can go to just go back to the economic classification slide. This one. Sorry, this one. Yeah, this one, Chair. What happens is that on this one, we never budget for this item, although we do pay at the end. It's never budgeted for because it relates to leave days that are paid to officials when they exit the system. When an official has accumulated leave days, you have to pay them those leave days when they exit the system. But because we never know at any point in time or at the beginning of the financial year which official is going to leave and how many leave days they will have, it's never budgeted for. So at the end of the financial year, we do transfer funds through to compensate for the money that we have spent, and that's what we are seeing in that other slide. Yeah, you can go back and put to that slide we are on. Yeah, this one, yeah, we can go to the next slide. This one is the detailed transfer to the entities. We've got 3 entities, Umalusi, ETDP, SITA, and SAIS. And then we arrange as to how many transfers we make. For SAIS and Umalusi, we transfer twice a year. That's why it's 50%. Whereas for ETDP, SITA, we transfer once off. Next slide. Next slide. This one is the school infrastructure backlogs grant. I've already spoken to it to say the underspending is basically because we're wrapping up projects. We are not appointing any new projects. But what we are also doing, Chair, is to see and to talk to Treasury to see if we can use some of the money on other areas. For that to happen, we have to get the Treasury approval, which we are doing. I think this is the last slide. Let me just check. Yeah, this is the last slide. Go to the very last one. Let's see. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, DG. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Rekuno. We're done, Honorable Minister, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, DG, and the team for that presentation. Honorable members, the department has presented. I am going to now note hands that want to engage with this presentation. On the platform, I am only noticing the hand of Honorable Mkhize, so I am going to allow Honorable Mkhize, okay. Honorable Sharif as well, Honorable Shkwambana, I have noted you, Honorable Law, you're all noted. Honorable Yordan as well, noted. Let's start with Honorable Mkhize. Honorable Ngobeni, you are noted.
Greetings, Chair. I've tried to make myself visible. I'm not sure if you can see me that side. Greetings to the Minister as well, the DG, the DM, and all other officials present, and the honorable members, part of the committee. We have received very good analysis of the reports, Chair, from our own team, and they did a great job. Thank you very much, team. Minister, just to follow up on the letter I wrote to you, because when I analyzed when I reviewed the analysis, it shows that clearly the problem here, the department still relies on improper baselines. And we need to have proper baselines, Minister, as we have been indicating to you that all what we want to know is how many schools need toilet, for example, in society, so that whatever we do is measured against that. For us to know if we successfully deal with cumulative dilapidation or the consistently increasing backlog of infrastructure. We need that baseline, Minister, across the performance areas, so that this picture is always clear in our eyes and in our minds. What challenge that department is facing and how far it works to address the challenge, and what more need and what more support is required. And Minister, if you don't have those proper baselines, you will not be able to deal with the cumulative degeneration that we see in the Department of Basic Education. So we wrote the letter just to follow up on that, because we still have not received the response. Two, percentage reporting, Chair, could be very deceitful. We need to know if you have achieved 20% against what proper baseline, not just to say 20 from a very small convenient target that was set. It doesn't help us to address the material condition. I know I'm singing the very same song. It's because there's no reaction to it and I'm not getting a response. So I'll keep on singing this song up until people understand that 100% of 2 schools built is not substantive. If you build 2 schools instead of building 100 schools, and you say you have achieved 100% because you built 2 schools, we are not substantively changing the environment on the ground. So that's what I'm saying, Minister, say you need to have proper baselines informed by proper baseline assessment on the ground, looking at material conditions. And we are not saying if you have to build 100 schools, build them now. But we are saying keep on having that picture in your planning to know how much dent you make. Because our infrastructure, Minister, as you know, the backlog keeps on increasing because 1 school, 2 schools keep on getting added on the list of schools that need repairs. So if you don't measure that cumulative dilapidation, you'll end up collapsing the whole education system in South Africa as it happens right now. We appreciate the DG's engagements. We heard that the DG has done oversight, but we need to know, DG, what were specific objectives for those oversight visits, and did you achieve those objectives? How do they then influence the APP and the operations of the department? Going there doing visibility is only for police, but for you as a leader of the department, we need tangible outcomes from your visits in terms of process and outcome. We must know that what impact your visit made. So kindly give us update on that one. If there's any derived progress in terms of the visit that you have done. Fiscal constraints versus underspending. Minister, we're very concerned. We can't keep on singing the same song that we're saying there's shortage of funds given to us, but those short funds or insufficient funds, we still underspend against them. It doesn't make sense. So on this point, Minister, we need a clear plan that should be submitted by the department to us as a committee explaining how you are arresting the situation of underspending. So we don't ask for more monies. We know those monies will be spent to change the material condition. So the action item, a clear plan to address this issue, Minister. Otherwise, an accountability for reasons behind, for those who contributed to underspending. Who is accounting for this underspending? If it's a process, how are we improving that process to prevent this perpetual underspending, which creates injustice in the society? So we need a clear plan on this one, Minister. And on the issue of underspending, Q1, 88% underspending, underperformance or underspending. Q2, 77% underspending. So we need to know really here what you do, Minister, to address the issue of poor payment of the poor purchasing of the capital assets, for example, that contributed to poor spending, poor payment of the contractors as well. We need a clear plan there to address this and arrest this underspending, because we cannot keep on talking about it, Minister. Underspending by 32 million rands, which is 90.1% due to delayed payments. We need a clear action plan here. How we are going to stop this and who accounts for this, Minister? We cannot keep on singing about this. ECT data remains very inconsistent. The department, Minister, is suffering under data management. Data generation, data storage, data analysis, and data use. You are dismally underperforming on that one. I think, Chair, it's about time now we invite the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation to come and assist the department. The department is struggling with data, and if you struggle with data generation, storage use, you are not going to succeed in anything that you do. You'll keep on chasing blind targets. So I think, Chair, I would recommend that perhaps the committee considers to invite the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation to assist the department. Accrual payments end up making the cumulative overspending in the coming quarters. How to arrest it, Minister? We need a clear plan. How are you going to deal with delayed payments that lead to accrual payments? As a result, we keep on underspending moving forward. Appreciate the completion of the SOP for the discharging of educators who are registered under the National Register for Social Offenders. We appreciate that, Minister, but let us quickly move towards now measuring impact thereof. A lot of things have been created, but they make no impact. Late recruitment of staff contributing to underspending. We need a clear plan here. How are we going to improve on this one, Minister? I don't know. I'm not asking you why now. I'm asking what we are doing about it, and we need a clear plan. The department still does not use proper baseline. I've made that point. Q1, 10.9% under expenditure, which is 597 million rands. Q2, 6.7% under expenditure, which is 712 million rands. Can you imagine, Minister, how this huge amounts of money could change the life of the learners? We need a clear plan here. This underspending now, we need a very clear action plan which is going to show how we are going to stop underspending moving forward. 300 million taken away from infrastructure budget by the to buy the textbooks, Minister. We know that in terms of the PFMA, if the budget exceeds 8% of the budget line item, it has to be approved. That shift has to be approved by the National Treasury. I'm asking if that process was followed, because if it was not followed, we'll go back to the findings of irregular or unauthorized expenditure, the bad or adverse audit findings. So I need to know if when you shifted this 300 million from infrastructure, which is suffering, and I don't know why you are even taking a cent from that item, if the process was followed to make sure that we follow due processes. Looking at the current state, Minister, of dilapidated school infrastructure, Chair, I think this committee must consider recommending to the DPE to make the infrastructure a separate program, not to put it as a sub-item under Program 4, if I remember very well. It has to be a very separate, independent program for it to be planned, implemented, monitored, and evaluated individually, because you see the state of dilapidation is massive and it's not bearable anymore. Even if you look at the financial investment that needs to be made to it, dictates that it has to be a separate program that is monitored individually to make sure that justice is done. Maybe if we do that, Chair, we'll start seeing this underspending under infrastructure and under performance under infrastructure declining. But if you still put it as a baby of something, we are taking attention from it. Last 2 points, Chair. Updates report on implementation of AG recommendations. We need an update report, Minister, how you are making sure that the department implements the AXA or the AG recommendations to address these 4 underperforming compliance areas, so that we stop having fruitless and wasteful expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, and irregular expenditure. So a separate report has to come now, how we are tracking and facilitating compliance with AG recommendations. Collaboration, Minister, with the Department of Military Veterans. I've received numerous cases of learners who are expelled from schools, depriving their right to education, simply because the Department of Military Veterans has not made payments to the independent school and private schools. Minister, your perhaps input in terms of how to improve the situation with your sister department. How do you make sure the department pays the learners so that their rights are protected? The case I know about is in Northwest. There are 2 learners who have been expelled from school because the Department of Military Veterans has not paid. So what's your collaboration with that department to stop this atrocity? Last point, Chair. Flood victims in Durban, people who are relocated because of flood victims, Minister, they are still not having access to education because the scholar transport was cut from them. And there's about 20 learners now who need special schools, who are sitting at home, not going to school, simply because they can't have access to the special schools because they demand money. We can't have this committee looking at this thing, passing by as if it is a normality. This is an anomaly, Minister. I need your reaction in terms of how to make sure that you quickly go arrest the situation in Durban. Those learners who can't go to school because of lack of scholar transport, they go back to school immediately and they get the scholar transport services. Those who need special schools, they do get access to those schools, and they're able, Minister, to access their rights. And we cannot allow, Chair, this committee to be an accomplice to this crime. It is a crime. It must be called a crime. It must be arrested. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Sharif.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, all honourable members, and of course the department. Chair, my first point is a bit of a piggyback off of Honourable Mkize's last point. I think we've spoken about this in committee quite often. The state in KZN is very concerning, especially around the lack of closing of special schools. And in the last meeting we had with the DG, they spoke about issues around LTSM for KZN. So if we can get an update around that, that would be really good. My second question is directly to the Minister. Minister, we just come back from the G20 summit. Can you maybe give us some highlights or updates on what was discussed or what was agreed upon when it, specifically when it comes to the education sector? Now, I want to go through some of the questions that came from the Q1 and Q2 presentation. Minister, you constantly speak about the progress of pushing provinces to accelerate infrastructure delivery, and we absolutely welcome this. This includes the 29 schools receiving new sanitation facilities and 17 classrooms built to ease overcrowding in Q2. However, and I think this is a point Honourable Mkize made, the department's own data shows persistent infrastructure backlogs and slow progress in several provinces. Now, my question to the department is, what concrete accountability measures will you be implementing to ensure that provinces not only spend the EIG, but also deliver quality quality infrastructure. It's one thing to give money and spend money. It's another thing to monitor the quality of the spending of the money, especially where infrastructure performance lags despite high expenditure. And when you answer this question to the department, you need to specify which provinces, if any, have been issued formal non-compliance notices, and what was the deadlines you set for them to meet the infrastructure norms, which include sanitation and overcrowding targets. In terms of school safety, it's great, Minister. It's really great that you've strengthened the cross-departmental collaboration with the revised DBE, I think, and SAP safety, school safety protocol. And it's reported that 20 districts have already been monitored. Yet, the fact on the ground is that incidences of violence and unsafe conditions continue to rise. And this is not only bullying, but it also includes statutory rape, sexual assault, and GBVF. How is the department measuring the actual impact of the new safety protocol at schools? It's one thing to have a protocol. It's another thing to measure the outcomes that the department wants to achieve with this new protocol. If you could just tell us how you measure the actual impact of this protocol. Again, like I said, implementation alone cannot be a metric. That's like saying that, I'm going to do this, do it, but not having any outcomes or measurable outcomes in terms of indicators, reductions, school trends. I think we spoke about this when we were looking at the BRRR, when we spoke about how do you look at trends when we had those provinces coming to report to us, because it's important to look at trends so you know what interventions you need to do in order to make sure that the culture of violence is not something that becomes a norm. A learner transport will remain, I think, a difficult issue and something that we have to apply our minds to. Around improving access and reducing barriers for learners. But we still, and from the oversight we did in the Free State, we've as the committee, we know that transport problems continue to affect rural and farm school learners disproportionately. So my question is, what steps is the DBE taking to enforce minimum service standards for scholar transport in provinces where delays, shortages, or unsafe vehicles continue to undermine access? Chairperson, even before serving on this portfolio committee and driving around, you'd always see school transport, scholar transport, or learner transports, and the state of the vehicles is shocking. Some of them look like they should be abandoned or they should be impounded, and it sort of boggles my mind that we are transporting children in unsafe vehicles. And so that's where my question comes, is how do we enforce a minimum service standard of scholar transport in provinces? And also, what is the department's oversight mechanism to ensure that provinces meet obligations? It's really good to hear that the department has successfully delivered 100% of the 20 of the workbooks to all provinces, which is a real achievement and does show that there's better planning within the department. However, I want to know how the department tracks whether all these learners actually receive these materials. One of the issues I raised, I think it was with the Northern Cape, was their targets looked like 60% of learners will get textbooks. And I made the point that 100% of students should have textbooks, not 60 or 50%. So how do you track that they all receive these materials? And do you have some sort of audit to verify? And will it be part of the Q3 performance indicators? In terms of financial statements and the financial report that you have presented to us, I think Honorable Nkizi has asked this question already around what specific corrective actions will be taken to address the material underspending or overspending in conditional grants, especially where poor provincial planning was identified as the cause of the variance. I won't cover the compensation of employees because I think that Honorable Mkhize did cover that. I want to ask which specific provinces failed to spend their conditional grants as planned in Q1 and Q2, by how much, and what consequence management or recovery plans are being implemented to do that. Chair, I will leave it at that, because I think whatever I don't cover, honourable members will cover, and whatever other questions I had, Honourable Mkhize did touch on it. Chairperson, I know that we're having a portfolio committee next week around the Bella Act, because I am very worried about grade R readiness, so perhaps I'll leave that.
Thank you, Honourable Sharif. Thank you, Honourable Sharif. Honourable Shikombana.
Thank you, Chair, and let me take this opportunity and greet you, greet the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, and the team from the department, and also greet the honorable members who are here today. My first question, Chair, will be directed to the Minister. I would want to know from the Minister if she's able to give us a progress report on the initiative of the National School Safety Framework. I'm asking this question, Chair, because we see in and around our schools, crime continue to increase and escalate. Is the safety initiative program bearing any positive results? Can the Minister at least respond to that? Because this issue was debated and it was discussed in Parliament, and it was the initiative of both the Minister and the Minister of Police. So I want to check if this initiative is actually bearing any positive results because of the crimes that we continue to see in our schools in all or across the provinces. Another question, or the second question that I have, is that we see that the Minister and the party that deployed her to Parliament are always bragging about having eradicated at least 90% of the pit toilet backlog. Can the Minister give us a background percentage per province, particularly the province of the Eastern Cape? I'm interested to know, in the Eastern Cape alone, in terms of percentage, in terms of numbers, how many pit toilets that are or you have eradicated specifically. But you can give us the overall background of each province, but my interest is in the Eastern Cape and KZN for that matter. Another question that I have to the Minister is that our people are worried, and our people want to know what is the main reason behind the extension of the submission of the public comment on the regulations of the Bella Act. The other question that I have to the department and the Minister, since majority of our learners are writing their final examination across the country, with the matriculants expected to finish by the end of this week. For 2 weeks now, across the country, Minister and the department, we had a heavy and serious rains. Does the Minister and the department, in a knowledge of any province or schools where these heavy rains may have negatively impacted on the progress of our learners writing their examinations? If yes, to what extent, and how did you salvage the situation? On the Funza Lushaka, you awarded at least 8,647 bursaries. My question is that how many graduates of these Funza Lushaka bursaries that we have actually awarded, how many graduates have been successfully absorbed into the permanent post between Q1 and Q2? The last question that I have, Chair, because majority of the things that I wanted to raise were also raised, I can't repeat myself, is that in the system, we do have students who are pursuing teaching at universities and colleges and are funded by NSFAS. And I've never heard anything from the department or from the Minister or in any reports that we come across before us that speaks of students who are directly funded by NSFAS and who are pursuing teaching a profession. How many are those students that are directly funded by NSFAS and are pursuing education or teaching as their profession? And how many of those that are funded by NSFAS that have graduated are today absorbed by the system, either temporal or permanent? Because what we are experiencing on the ground is that majority of the graduates that were pursuing education or teaching as their profession have been funded by NSFAS. After graduating, they are not necessarily being absorbed. They find it very difficult to fund jobs. So I want to know, how is the department assisting these students or graduates who are directly funded by NSFAS, and when they graduate, they find it very difficult to find placement in elsewhere? They will be told that the first priority is Funza Lushaka graduates or people who were funded by Funza Lushaka. But there are these people also who are funded by NSFAS, who are qualified teachers, who are looking for jobs and who are ready to work, but they can't find jobs anywhere. How is the department and the ministry assisting these people into making sure that they too get a preference in terms of absorbing them to get their jobs? And this, it makes sense because even in our report, Chair, you will agree with me, there is nowhere we've got an account of graduates or students who are pursuing education or teaching as their profession being maybe we find something or a stats that speaks something along their lines to say we've got this number of people funded by NSFAS, this is the number of people who have graduated funded by NSFAS, and this is the number of people who are being absorbed by the system funded by NSFAS. Can we at least get a clarity from the department and the minister along those lines? Thank you very much.
Honorable Law.
No, thanks, Chair. Let me also welcome the presentation that has made a noteworthy progress in various areas, and substantial challenges remain a threat, Chair, to the efficiency and equity of our educational system, Chair. I think the presentation, Chair, that was brought to us today has called for an urgent need for targeted interventions and collaborated efforts, Chair, so that we're able to address all of these issues that were highlighted and some that were addressed by other members. And we also need to focus in making sure that we enhance capacity, Chair, by improving procurement processes. We need to ensure equitable teacher deployment and enforcing safety and support systems that can be able to allow us to have an inclusive education system that is responsive and that is going to be dealing with all of the issues. And I think members have highlighted on the increase of predetermined indicators by the department. They've also highlighted on the significance of the oversight and then of the DG on visiting all of the districts and stuff like that. And the critical one must put emphasis on the transitional issue of the early childhood development programs that it's got challenges that relate to monitoring quality, funding flow, and practitioner development, which remain unresolved. It remains unresolved, and it brings uneven in the education ecosystem that I think we need to deal with. And we also need to look onto, while we deal with the ECD transitional issues that seeks to speak of the funding issues, we've got limited monitoring of foundational learning initiatives, such as the early grade reading assessment, particularly whereby affected underperforming quintiles is a concern about the effectiveness of the interventions. We need to put interventions on such. And one must also speak on the targets of today, while we note the presentation has made notification that Umalusi is busy progressing the revised history curriculum, or that has been long awaited. And I think it is quite important that we continue to say we would need an effective implementation that is immediate. And we're still going to echo the sentiment that it should be Afrocentric and well balanced and aligned to what could have been happening, so that it can reconscientize our young people and continue to align what the demands of saying the curriculum will have to be effectively aligned to what the disparities of the country, so that we're able to respond to what the country needs. And we also, Chair, I think which Honorable Chikomane has dealt with the issues of Funza Lushaka, and then there's also issues of disciplinary processes. We need to, the DBE, I see it has finalized its standard operating procedures for discharging educators listed on the National Register, and then, but my issue is that they say there's a need for strict enforcement on the guidelines, and critical to that, I'm citing that during the presentation when we had the ECD, when they were dealing with the misconduct, sexual misconduct, we would have seen some loopholes and disparities where these things are being left just hanging, and then indeed the research has confirmed that parents have lost hope. And critical to also, before that, what I think is quite important, it's a persistent delays in the infrastructure projects and inconsistent data quality that continues to undermine the planning and assessment, and it continues to complicate the DBE's ability to meet its strategic objectives. And that also needs us to also say the DBE needs to reconcile themselves with the IAIs, the implementing agencies, so that they are able to be competent and they deal with the disparities that confront the department, so that we're able to be very much responsive, and we're able to could have dealt with all of the issues that are quite critical, so that we are there, Chair. So I want to pose 3 to 4 questions, Chair, and then I bow so that I allow other members to participate fully as required. I want to check what are the most critical issues identified in, for example, suppliers delays food quality, and how are they being addressed in the 93 schools monitored for the NSNP? And as the department assessed affordability risk due to the rising food price, given the scale of the NSNP, and are we also following the standardized procedure in terms of the environmental health standardized and procedures on the food quality? And then how is the newly signed DBE sub-safety protocol being implemented in provinces with high level of school violence? What progress has been made in expanding psychosocial support teams and to rural and high-risk schools? And then the underexpenditure, the DBE underspends several areas. What are the root causes of underspending, and what becomes the remedial measures and that are in place, Chair? And then what does the educational infrastructure grant continue to underspend year after year? Why? Why does it spend year after year? Which provinces are the primary contributors to infrastructure grant underspending, and what are the departmental interventions thereof in terms of for each department that is underspending? Would I don't know, was it asked, but I could have heard there are payments. The treasury has noted 3 million payment from infrastructure to workbooks. What was the justification, and what project delays resulted in that? And then in implementing agencies, which implementing agencies consistently fail to deliver infrastructure projects on time? Has the DBE considered a national panel of pre-vetted contractors or centralized procurement? And how does DBE ensuring the data integrity across provincial departments, especially concerning ECD assessments and teacher deployment? What digital systems are being modernized to improve real-time reporting with regard to that? And then which quarter 1 and 2 targets are at risk of not being made by the end of 2025-26? What is the department's strategy to accelerate performance in the next 2 quarters? And how will the DBE ensure stronger alignment between district-level diagnostics and school improvement plans? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Low. Honorable Leodan.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, for the opportunity. Thank you also to the department and the Minister for the presentation. We welcome the progress that's been made in the last quarters, and particularly also considering that the targets of the department had increased significantly in the last year, as the Minister had just reported. Chair, with regards to early childhood education and foundational learning, I must commend the department's over-exceeding their target with the Bana Pele program. We've seen this program largely being praised by provinces and the public alike, and we hope that the quality and availability of materials and infrastructure for early childhood development programs beyond only access will also be measured and reported on by the department in their future plans, as well as access to nutrition for these very young learners. Is the department analyzing early learning assessment results, the ELNA results, to design interventions where young children are performing below developmental milestones or benchmarks? We've seen that being reported on in the presentation, but it doesn't give us any the statistics don't necessarily give us any indication of what will be done to improve. Then with regards to foundational learning, Chairperson, 33 schools seems to be monitored for early reading. How is the department ensuring that this is diverse enough to be representative and provide an accurate depiction of what the status quo is in schools across the country when it comes to early reading? And will the department report on output in the form of learner outcomes and not only input in terms of what the department's activities are? Then, Chair, with reference to the National School Nutrition Program, and particularly slide 63 that's been presented, which provinces underspent their NSNP grant in the 2 quarters, despite high reliance on school meals in poor communities? And might we have particular figures with reference to that? And are provinces reporting any missed feeding days? If so, what consequences or interventions follow? Now, we've seen in the last portfolio committee meeting that we've had, the Northern Cape had actually reported on approximately 80,000 learners that did not receive meals in Q2, which resulted in them underachieving on their target. And according to their reports, this was because of learners undertaking exams. And according to that province, this is because these might be learners in quintile 4 and 5 schools, or it might be because learners leave without eating after writing their exams. What is the department's view on this reasoning given, and does this then amount to waste? Is this a common reason for targets with regards to feeding learners not being met across provinces? And particularly since I've spoken to teachers in the Northern Cape during our oversight earlier this year, who mentioned that they often make plans to feed learners from their pockets, especially during exams, and this was in an impoverished community in Nababib. Chair, the presentation outlines the number of learners reached via the NSNP, and then also relating to this, can the department confirm that all learners in quintile 1 to 3 schools are reported on in slide 63? Or if not, does the department have the statistics at hand of how many learners per province there are in total that should have been fed in each category of schooling, so that we can have a depiction of the percentage of learners that should be reached versus how many were actually reached? Then, Chairperson, just a quick question on Funza Leshaka. On slide 46, this program is reported on. Can the department please elaborate for us on the 1,858 Funza Leshaka graduates that were issued to all provincial education departments? Are these graduates now working in the system, or are the 1,046 unplaced graduates forming part of this number? So that's just the clarity question. And then what are the consequences or interventions undertaken for poor placement rates of Funza Leshaka graduates, particularly in provinces like the Northern Cape, where there's a 1.1% placement, and Mpumalanga, where there's a 2.7% placement, where we know there are challenges in terms of teacher retention in these provinces, particularly because these provinces have schools in some very rural areas. I think the Northern Cape also reported last week having difficulty maintaining STEM educators because of schools being placed in rural areas, and then new teachers not wanting to actually move and teach there if they are offered employment. So perhaps we can just be given some indication as to why these provinces are performing so poorly when it comes to placing Funza Leshaka graduates, because I understand they also have some responsibility towards the department following the benefit of graduating from their bursary. And then I think a lot of questions have already been asked on finances and whether provinces have complied when it or underspent when it comes to financial performance in these 2 quarters. So I'll just ask the question whether they've complied with the minimum no fee allocations that were made. As we know that provinces like Limpopo, KZN, the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga are known to fail and meet minimum compliance in terms of financial performance in the past. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Yodan. Honorable Ngobeni, please, Honorable Mkhize, please lower your hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I hope that I'm audible, and good morning to members and all of the colleagues here present. I am going to switch my video off because I just received a notification that my bandwidth is a little bit scanty, so I don't want to lose my train of thought. But I do want to open just by saying that I do want to commend the Minister of Basic Education for attending these meetings, Chairperson. I'll have you know that some of us sit on multiple committees, and a lot of the ministers really are no-shows. I think I can count on one hand the number of times that the Minister of Basic Education has not attended these meetings. And so I really do think that that deserves due recognition. I'm going to switch my video off now and say that, Chairperson, I want to start my questions just by speaking from key observations that one has made from the report, and that my questions will emanate from those observations. And so, having reviewed that the department's Q1 and Q2 performance, it is clear to us that the report, while it reflects extensive activity, it does leave critical gaps in understanding the impact of activities on the lived reality of learners across the country, on teachers and the schools that are concerned. It is our responsibility, Chairperson, as this committee, not simply to applaud movement, but to also interrogate whether these efforts translate into measurable improvements in the basic education system. And so I make the following observations that will then be followed by the questions that one has. The first observation is the massive increase in the quarterly targets without matching resources. We note that the department has expanded from 8 to 24 quarterly targets, which equals a 200% increase in Q1 and similarly in Q2. Yet has also reduced several targets due to budgetary constraints. The second observation that we made is the heavy focus on leadership activities versus the outcomes. We note that the large portion covers the minister, the deputy minister, and DG activities without clear demonstration of measurable improvements in outcomes. The third is that monitoring shows persistent systemic weaknesses, that this is despite extensive monitoring of schools and districts. The implementation of curriculum has got gaps, and the reading weaknesses remain widespread. And this is what I think has been the common observation by all the members of the committee. The fourth one, I think this is the one that Honorable Mkhize really delved into, is the data quality challenges that are persisting. That we do have data verification issues, that you see the systems of SAMS, inconsistencies and manual data capture in some cases, highlighting ongoing weaknesses in reporting reliability. This is a total concern because without accurate data, it is very difficult to set targets and then follow and monitor them. The fifth observation relates to infrastructure delivery pace, which remains slow. And I think this question was asked by Honorable Shkwambane, if I'm not mistaken, with regards to progress on sanitation and classroom delivery. We note that this remains insufficient relative to the national backlog with no clear timelines provided. And I think this was a question that was asked to the minister. And so having made those observations, Chairperson, I want to raise the following clarity-seeking questions. Firstly, given that the department has expanded quarterly targets by 200, yet simultaneously reduced other work targets due to budgetary constraints, how realistic and achievable is this expanded target framework, and what capacity adjustments have been made to prevent systemic underperformance? The second question, clarity-seeking question that I have is, without monitoring, without demonstrated impact is impossible. And so I want to find out, despite the extensive monitoring across underperforming schools, systemic weaknesses are persisting. What are the improvements that can be measured, not just activities, have resulted from these monitoring exercises, and how is the department ensuring that recommendations are implemented at district and school levels? The third question that I have, Chairperson, is with an ongoing SAMS, I hate these acronyms, SAMS inconsistencies and manual data capturing in some cases. What are the time-bound measures that are being taken to stabilize and standardize data quality across provinces within the country? The fourth question that I have is related to infrastructure delivery pace versus the backlog. So we know that the report provides delivery of numbers, but it does not offer the necessary context. How does this pace compare with the national backlog, and what is the projected time frame to eliminate outstanding infrastructure deficits? I want to emphasize on this one, Chairperson, that we would like to get realistic projected timeframes and not just the aspirational ones, because what is very clear and what has been very transparent is that we set these targets and we roll back when we can't achieve them, blaming or citing one issue over the other. I think that is important to say that we had targeted to deliver X number of infrastructure services, and we have achieved them, whether it's at 10% or whether it's at 80%. But I think it should be realistic because otherwise it shows underperformance, and maybe sometimes that underperformance is skewed. And so it is important, even from the psychological improvements that can happen as a result of delivery from a societal point of view. We think that that is very important because I think South Africans are very exhausted by all sorts of excuses or all sorts of reasons that are given for us not being able to deliver what we have promised to the people of South Africa. So we think that that is very important for us to underscore. The fifth and final question emanating from the observations that we have made from the report, Chairperson, is with regards to budget variances and corrective action. And so which specific programs experienced the largest deviations, what caused these deviations, and what corrective measures will be implemented to ensure full and efficient spending for the remainder of the financial year? I think those are my 5 key observations and also key clarity-seeking questions, Chairperson. I will leave it there, and thank you very much for the indulgence.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngobeni. Majority of my questions are adequately covered by the members that spoke before me. But just safe to say, the first request that I want to make to the department through you, Minister, number 1, is that you would need to really apprise the committee Apologies for that. So I think you need to apprise the committee on the milestones and the quarterly tracking of annual targets. So some of the annual targets, so that we know how you are doing, how you are performing quarterly towards the achievement of your annual targets. So there are some annual targets where you are able to give us an account of the milestones that the department has achieved. But there are some critical programs where you are unable to apprise us as a portfolio committee on some form of quarterly performance. We know that it is an annual target, but quarterly, what are you achieving as a department? That gives us an indication that you are set to achieve your annual target. And I'll give you an example. The first one being the number of candidates achieving 60% and above in maths and physical science. So, for example, we want to know what is the term test performance of learners, of these learners in these two subjects, so that we are able to see where we are seated, that indeed the department, it is set to achieve its annual target based on the numbers that you have indicated as your indicator or as your target. The second one is, for example, the issue of the revised history curriculum assessment policy statement. The indication or the information we get from these reports is just that you've submitted the caps to Umalusi for appraisal. But we need to then get an update as a committee as to how far is Umalusi in terms of approving this caps or the policy statement. So we are making this humble request to you that as you draft the quarterly reports, on the updated performance on your annual targets, on how are you doing, how are you performing quarterly to ensure that you are set to achieve your annual target. Now, the second issues, the minister in her opening speaks about how you have included or you've added quarterly targets to improve the alignment, your alignment or to align your annual plan to the MTDP. Now, one of the issues that the minister raises, and one of the new quarterly targets, of course, you've added, is this issue of the number of matriculants that are passing with 60% and above on maths and science. Now, you are saying that your target, for example, for maths is 44,789 learners. Now, what we want to know is that how many learners are enrolled for this subject, so that we are able to understand how do you arrive at a target of 44,789. What percentage of learners is that? So if, for example, you say to us 200,000 learners are enrolled for these two subjects, why would your target be 44,789? Especially as we've spoken about how we need to improve the quality of our learners' performance in the STEM subjects and how we need to improve also the quantity of the learners that are participating in the STEM subjects. Now, two is the issue of grade 4 mother tongue-based bilingual assessment that the minister said we ought to applaud. It is an achievement. And of course, it's an achievement. But we want to know, because you're saying you've undertaken the maths assessment for the first time, the maths exam for the first time. How many learners have participated in this examination, or how many are participating in this examination? Out of how many? And also take us through how these learners were prepared, how they were supported throughout by the teachers, utilizing curriculum to ensure that they are ready to undertake this huge achievement that we are welcoming, Minister. We ought to say that we welcome this achievement, but we want to understand if there was adequate support, there was adequate preparation for the learners to be able to undertake this mother tongue-based maths examination. And of course, you're also mentioning physical science. Now, the issue of the second chance matric program, have you conducted any evaluation of this program, if it is bearing or if it is making the impact that we wanted to make? And I want to give you context as to why I am asking this question. Many of our learners who conclude matric, majority of them go to they say they need to go and upgrade their outcomes or their performance. So they go to different paths and they enroll to different independent institutions that but the performance and what we are hearing is that majority of them fail or actually they actually reduce the outcome. So if the learner says, I'm going there because I want to upgrade my maths results, and ultimately, actually what they achieve is actually a lower mark from the mark that they initially received. And we want to know if that is your experience, and if it is your experience, what is the problem? Because these institutions are independent institutions that are providing this service and parents are paying. So we want to know how effective is the second chance matric program in terms of your own assessment, in terms of your own evaluation. Now, there is an issue of reduced targets. And one of your reduced targets is the number of districts monitored on foundation phase, teachers trained in numeracy and literacy. And the target has been reduced from 40 districts to 27 districts. Now, I want to understand, how do you justify this action as a department? And I want to understand because you are a department that has raised an alarm on the performance of our learners in terms of reading for comprehension or reading for meaning, especially at grade 4 or at the foundation phase. Now, if you are raising an alarm on such an issue, how then do you justify reducing a target to monitor the training, the foundation phase teachers training in numeracy and literacy? Is that aligned? Can you be able to say to us, you've aligned this decision with what you have said to us, it's an alarming problem? Because for me, that for me, it is not linked. It doesn't speak to each other. You can't say we're having a serious problem of learners that are not reading for comprehension at grade 4. But then you say, well, we are going to reduce based on constraints, of course. You look at your entire APP or all your targets, and you say, but no, this is the specific target where we want to reduce the number of the indicator. And you drastically reduce it from 40 to 27. You reduce the number of districts that you're going to monitor by at least 17 districts. How then do you align that with improving what you're saying it's a problem? How are we going to ensure? Because the monitoring, it's able to detect the gaps in the capacity of teachers to improve the situation. So if you are not able to detect the gaps, how then do you intervene so that we improve that anomaly that you said it is an anomaly? One of the other annual target, which is the amendment, the Children's Amendment Bill, where you are not actually providing any update in terms of how far you are in achieving this, because your annual target is that you are just going to draft the bill. But you're not telling us to say, this is where we are. We've drafted perhaps the first three, or we have amended the first 3 sections of the bill, and where we are seated, we can confirm that we are actually heading in the right direction as a department towards the achievement of that bill being drafted by the end of this financial year. Now, you also speak about the number of learners, which these are your new targets, which are meant to align with the MTDP. So you are saying to us, the new target is to ensure that there is 1,000, more than 1,000 at least, number of learners participating in National School Sports Championships. Now, this against a total number of about 13 million learners that are in the schooling system. We just want to ensure that only 1,000 learners are participating in the National School Sports Championship. Can you give us the thought process? Can you try and make us understand how do you arrive at such a target? Unless if you're saying, because for me, I would have wanted to hear, this is learners participating in the championship. But there ought to be a target on the number of learners that participate in different sporting activities at a school level, even if they don't reach your championships. But you ought to be able to say to us, give us an account of the number of learners in our schooling system that are participating in one sporting activity or the other. At least there ought to be an indication that at least we've got 300,000 learners within the schooling system that are participating in netball as a sporting facility. I think this target and this indicator is really just to tick boxes, because it doesn't speak to the magnitude, or it does not relate to what the MTDB is trying to achieve by infusing sports within our schools to try and enhance social cohesion, to also stimulate our children, but to also keep our children engaged in progressive or positive activities so that we keep them away from the streets, but also to enhance and discover talent. So if you are saying your indicator is just 1,000 learners participating in a championship against 1 million, we can't tell, seated here, as society, as the committee, on exactly how many learners are participating in any sports code, because the only indicator or the only framework or measuring tool is that we should see 1,000 learners participating in some championship out of 13 million learners in the schooling system. So for me, I really need to understand the thought process so that perhaps we're on the same page. I want to agree with Honorable Shikwambana, because this specific administration, and this is the 7th administration minister, cannot say we have eradicated 90% of pit latrine toilets. Tell us about the ones that you, since the commencement of this administration, have eradicated. So you should be able to say to us, this number was identified. When we got into office, this number was eradicated. Since we've been to office, this is the number that has been eradicated, so that the messaging is quite clear and it's accurate. And I want to agree with Honorable Shkwambana that we ought to claim victories that are really our victories, and not claim easy victories that are not ours, because it can't be that you've eradicated 90%. As this administration, you ought to be able to say, since we got into office, this is the number. So give us the exact number of pit latrine toilets that you've eradicated yourselves. You've spoken about is this issue of throughput rate, and this is an issue that comes out, and I want to concur with Honorable Yordan, and thank you, Honorable Yordan, for raising that question on the nutrition, the school feeding scheme, and the report we received from the Northern Cape, because it was quite concerning, because we wanted to understand if that is the policy of the department. If it is not the policy of the department, do you have any monitoring mechanisms to monitor how the distribution or how the scheme is administered at school levels, and if indeed children are receiving meals as they should? Because that report from the Northern Cape was really concerning. So I really want to hear the views and the response of the department. But also adding to that, so the Northern Cape also indicated an alarming situation, the throughput rate, that the department or that province loses quite a significant number of learners. So, and they are lost in the system. and the province was saying they're conducting some form of an evaluation or some form of a study, they'll be able to report to us. But what I want to understand is, in terms of your own experience, in terms of your own database, is that a national problem? If it is a national problem where we are losing learners within the system, do we have tracking mechanism? Do we have any policy framework that speaks about tracking learners? The grade 1 learner that enters this year, do we have a mechanism to track that learner until they complete and they exit because this is one issue that we've engaged with you and we've spoken to you as a department about before. So want to hear, since our discussions, what have you put in place to ensure that there is some tracking mechanisms to ensure that learners stay in the system? I want to complete by asking this question to the minister directly. This portfolio committee said to the department, we are receiving allegations of racial profiling in the Western Cape Education Department in terms of admissions and placement of learners. And we said these are allegations and they are damning allegations. So we can't confirm and we can't or nor deny to the parents who are saying, parents organizations who are saying there is some form of racial profiling. We then gave you a task as the department to go and conduct an investigation on our behalf and come and give us a report on the validity of these allegations. We've not received a single update from the department, not even because the department said to us, Chairperson, you are giving us a time frame of 3 months. It might not be adequate. Allow us space to go and ponder on this recommendation of the committee and come back to you and say, we can conduct the investigation, but we would require this time. So you've not even done that, Minister. So we want to know, are you refusing to conduct this investigation on our behalf? You should tell us if you are refusing. So that if you are refusing, because we are seated here as a committee, we need to be able to respond. And I'm raising this because it is towards the end of the year. Already, our complaints section is flooded with complaints from parents, especially in the two provinces, which is Gauteng and the Western Cape, on placements and admissions of learners. And in the Western Cape, we did say to you, there is racial profiling undertones that come with these complaints. And we said you need to ascertain, you need to do this investigation and tell us if there is some substance to these allegations. You've not said anything, and it has been months. So you need to tell us today, are you refusing to conduct this investigation? I think I'm going to leave it here. If there are other follow-ups, we will make follow-ups because I know we've asked a lot of questions, Minister and DM and DG. So I'm going to hand over then to the department for the responses.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have just stepped out of the cabinet meeting to just respond to some of the questions. Some of them have been directed at me in particular. And the DG and the team will certainly be able to lead the rest of the responses that I don't touch on. Just like there's a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning. Number one, you asked a question about the Children's Amendment Bill and where we are with that process. Where we are with the process is that the work on our side is the DBE has been done. As I indicated, I think in the last meeting, we are obviously before this this bill can be tabled in Parliament, we need to make sure that we are in concert and we are in agreement with OXLA, the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, and we are having an engagement with OXLA on some definitions. You'll recall that the bill does not only just include basic education, but also includes municipalities and other entities that are separate from the department. And so OXLA is doing their due diligence in making sure that we try very hard to make these definitions as clear as possible. So the bulk of the work is done, but as OXLA gives us feedback, we obviously need to tweak and fix what they give us. I've also asked the DG to engage with the Chief State Law Advisor directly, because my view is that these teams should sit down and essentially resolve the definition issues so that we can make sure that we move on quickly from this bill drafting process. As I indicated, I think the last time I spoke about this matter, the Children's Amendment Bill is slightly complex because it's not just us who are involved in the bill and in the drafting of the bill. It involves other actors as well, and so that's why we have to make sure that we make sure that we do our due diligence. Then you also asked a question, and I think it was also asked about by Honorable Shikwambana around pit toilets that have been eradicated. I find that I must say, Chairperson, I do find it a little bit strange because we have been quite clear about the fact that, you know, when you assume a responsibility as a political head, even things that were conducted in 2018, I can't come to this committee and say, look, that is something that was done before my time, therefore I can't provide a response. So it's strange to me that on the one side, I'm expected to take full accountability on every single thing within the department, but then at the same time, I must also delineate what has specifically been done in this particular administration. It's strange. I mean, I think for me, I think as a leader, you take on a portfolio as is. But if the committee is interested in, for me, delineating exactly what has been done, I can happily provide that. We took on, when we came into office in 2024, 92% of the backlog that was identified in 2018 was done. We are now sitting at 98%, and we have an ambition to complete this backlog by the end of the financial year. But I'm just saying that it's a slightly strange phenomenon that the committee wants us to follow. But if that's the case, I'm more than happy to do so. For me, the issue is the education system is a continuum. I've inherited ministerial task team reports that were done before my time, but implementation now is up to me. So it will be quite strange that I'm then going to be expected to say, okay, well then when I came in, this is what I've done. And it's not collegial in my view. I think that we ought to go beyond such. I think it's unhelpful, but if the committee, that's what the committee would like me to do, I'm more than prepared to even submit a report of what was done since my appointment in June up until now, so that the members can be assured that I claim no easy victories. Then in terms of monitoring mechanisms for the National School Nutrition Program that you mentioned, yes, we have mechanisms in place to make sure that at the school level we try and look at samples of whether or not the school nutrition program is being implemented. We obviously have to make sure that we do so on a sample basis. The Auditor General also does do a similar exercise and similar work, and so we try very hard to make sure that the actual delivery of the school nutrition program is actually done. But at any given time, I think the DG will talk to this, but at any given time, we have to look at a particular sample. Then the other question that was asked is around, do we track learners through the system? Yes, we do track learners through the system. That is why we are able to provide the committee with a statistic that says we've got about a 64% throughput rate, because we do track learners from grade R now all the way to grade 12. What I think we should be improving on, and I've been quite open about this, is that I think we should improve on learners who leave the system, tracking them when they actually leave the system. Where do they go? Do we know that if they've gone to other institutions of higher learning? Do we know if we've lost them to drop out? And I think we need to do better. And one of the things that we are doing with Minister Malamela's department is to make sure that we are collating that data. I had committed when we announced the matric results this year that we are going to try and make sure that the data between the two departments is consolidated so that we can be able to provide an accurate reflection of where do the learners, where have they gone to once they've left our system. Then the other issue around the investigation around racial profiling in the Western Cape, I think, I mean, look, we can certainly request and ask the province to provide a response to specific allegations, and we would need to get those from the committee. But also, Chairperson, I think there's nothing stopping the committee from also conducting a similar investigation, because ultimately you hold us accountable. And so we have no problem with getting those specific allegations and getting the province to essentially respond to them and ask them specifically around some of the allegations that have been made. But perhaps the committee might want to satisfy itself, considering the oversight role that it plays. And so let us do our part, and we'll submit the report once we've engaged with the province. But as I say, the committee might want to essentially, satisfy themselves that they are playing that oversight role on the executive. And then Honorable Mkhize had asked about the documents that he had shared with me. I want to assure you that those documents will be with you before lunchtime today. We have collated the information that you had essentially asked for. And then I also wanted to respond to, I think it was Honorable Lowe and Honorable Sharif, who had asked about the DBE and SAPS collaboration and whether or not it's yielding results. Firstly, I think the members are absolutely right. I think, signing a cooperation agreement is one thing, but making sure then that that cooperation agreement is yielding results is going to be quite important. And I've been quite pleased by the fact that this has been driven down at a school level, at a circuit level, at a district level, and it's not just something, an MOU that was signed by politicians. It's something that we've had searches and seizures in various schools. And so it is working to a large extent. But obviously, members, the reality is that the incidence of bullying and violence in schools, that's something that is societal. At the end of the day, we can't have SAPs camped out in schools. But of course, principals have that resource that is available to them to be able to essentially come into a school, do a search and seizure, should a principal believe that there is such there's such a need. I recently went to a school in Humansdorp where we tragically lost a learner to a stabbing incident in school. And one of the things that I went to go there to do is to do oversight, to make sure that in the cooperation agreement, it states clearly that each school has to have a safety committee over and above what we call the SGB. And I was pleased to see that that safety committee is working. And I was pleased to see that they were able to provide me with minutes and reports of incidents that they've reported. So I'm pleased that this is working and it's finding practical expression on the ground in particular. Then also there was a question around schools in KZN that have been affected by disasters. We are quite pleased that in the in the medium-term budget policy statement, the two provinces that were affected, that were adversely affected by disasters, KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, have received additional funding from Treasury to be able to try and essentially target some of those schools that have been affected by disasters. This is absolutely important so that schools are not falling behind in terms of infrastructure. With regards to the issues that have also been reported by members around KwaZulu-Natal, members, excuse me. With regards to the questions that have been asked by members around KwaZulu-Natal, the Deputy Minister and I think I've shared with the committee, we are doing everything in our power to try and, alongside with the DG, to try and make sure that the province is meeting essentially, because the province is in financial distress. And when we met with the Premier, because of course the additional funding that is going to have to come from the province itself. And so that's why we targeted meeting with the Premier, so that we can say and really articulate the real danger of not having money set aside for LTSM. And so Premier Ntuli is aware, and we're really hoping that the province will be able to pull that together, because ultimately there is no legal or financial mechanism for us to be able to bail out a province. It doesn't exist. If a province is in financial distress, and as we are seeing in other provinces as well, the solution has to come from the province, from the equitable share. And so that is why I'm also personally engaging with premiers to say there's no legal financial instrument to be able to bail out a government department in a province. The premiers are the ones that need to make sure that education departments are doing what they need to do. And then lastly, I think before I give over to the department, Honorable Sharif asked around the G20 and some of the work that has come from that. I think members will be very pleased that we saw one of our key priorities, which is strengthening the foundations of learning, reflected in the leaders' declarations of the outcome of the G20. Additionally to that, we are essentially pushing, and we've managed to get the IPSA countries, so India, Brazil, and South Africa, to really put, during the South Africa's presidency of IPSA, to put the issue around strengthening the foundations of learning, of early child education and care on the top of the agenda. And I think we ought to be proud as a sector that we've managed to put this very important priority on the global stage. And I think from then on, I will give over to the Director General. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I just wanted to check whether DM wants to come in before we come in, or DM will come in at the end.
No, she is inside the Cabinet Committee meeting, DG. So it's just me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. And thank you for a very comprehensive response. The DDG will help me to respond to some of the questions that are not fully covered by the Minister. Honorable Mkize, sorry, the purpose and impact of the DG's visit, oversight visit to provinces and districts. We do mainly the following. As indicated in the report, beginning of the year, we meet with the 75 districts individually. There is a detailed questionnaire that we are happy to share with you, so that you see the areas that we cover there. We essentially cover everything. We expect the district director to lead the state of the district presentation, which covers virtually all the aspects of what would expect the district to be performing in. And that will then be followed by an analysis of their presentation by a manager in my office who look at areas of weaknesses or areas of underperformance, or even lessons learned from other districts that are performing well, or other systems in the world that are performing well in areas that a district would not be performing well in. Then I would be coming in to round off and giving a way forward on specific areas to focus on in that particular academic year or school calendar year. Then I would outline to each of these districts what are the specific things that they need to focus on based on their presentation, the analysis from the manager, and then say to them, these are the things that you need to focus on to improve. As we meet from year to year, we even check whether they have improved in those areas. That's what we do. Then we also have what we call engagements with provinces beginning of the year and the end of the year. These engagements with provinces are based on the assessment data that has been gleaned from the previous academic year, looking at grade R to grade 12. And then DBE will be presenting on a number of topics in terms of the performance of the system. And once DBE, different line functions would have done that, then provinces would come in and give us their plan for the year in the same meeting. And then the second engagement with provinces, we're really looking at the state of readiness to round off the academic year. We're tracking learner performance, as the minister said, from grade R to grade 12. And those reports, we are happy to share them with you as well. We look at how the system is performing from grade R to grade 12 per subject. And this is towards the end of the year. We expect the province to cover quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. What would be meaning is quarter 4, which will be covered in the subsequent academic year. And the DBE officials at that time of the second phase of the engagement, they now play the role of analyzing what the province is presenting, asking questions and pinpointing areas that are still areas of underperformance. I don't like, honestly, talking about my work. I'm trying very hard not to do that. I'm just indicating what is involved in this oversight exercises, these oversight activities. I am not the only one who goes out to do this work of, which is actually in Section 8 of the National Education Policy Act, which is doing monitoring, evaluation, and support to the system. All line functions do that, as we would have seen from the report. My role actually is to even check whether those who are supposed to monitor and support are actually doing that. And that's the main thing that I'm expected to do when I go out on this. Infrastructure, as we speak, I'm in Limpopo. I've covered over the past 2 weeks and 2 days, I've covered 265 schools that Auditor General said these schools need to reach closeout report and final accounts, because if they continue this way, the department runs the risk of even recovering money that could be recovered from either the contractor or the implementing agent. I've got 600 of such schools that I still need to go and cover in the Eastern Cape come beginning of the school calendar year next year, and about over 200 in KZN. Mr. Mafoko and his team also go out to monitor infrastructure projects, focusing particularly on projects that are running within the current financial year. The impact of that, you will see it in the number of projects that when the Auditor General would say, projects that have reached final accounts and closeout reports, last financial year were this many, this financial year we've managed to reduce them to an X number. We are out really to push projects to reach final accounts and close out reports. Under expenditure, I do meet with provinces to look at their performance in all the grants. I must be woefully honest with you. I am concerned about a grant on learners with profound and intellectual disabilities. That grant underperforms every year, and part of the problem is structural. You appoint psychologists when they see, because they're appointed on contract, fixed-term contract, the grant doesn't allow us to appoint this specialist on a permanent basis. When they find a permanent post elsewhere, they apply for that post, they leave. And part of the under expenditure is caused by vacancies in those grants. So we monitor performance on a monthly basis. We take this to HEADCOM, we take it to CEM. Where there are serious problems, Minister in DM draws in a province, we focus on them to try and push them to make sure that they do improve. I'm sure if the CFO is able to clean that data, he can indicate to you, for instance, in the second quarter, which provinces did we find to be underperforming. My recollection, is that there are a few of them. Let me not mention them now. The CFO will help us to mention them. A clear plan on underspending of infrastructure. Honorable Mkhize, let me just right from the onset say I agree with you. In fact, the 300 million that we moved from infrastructure to workbooks in particular, we've been experiencing budget pressure on workbooks to the extent that we've been even dealing with accruals from year to year. National Treasury has seen that, and National Treasury has approved the movement of 300 million from school infrastructure backlog grant and moved it to help us deal with challenges that you experience in terms of the workbooks. So we have complied. It is National Treasury that allowed us. We can give you that proof to show that we can't do it without the approval from National Treasury. You are right. Underperformance and data management and baseline, quite honestly, I've tried to deal with this previously, but let me say this. Data for learning outcomes or data for the performance of the system is in basic education. You can't get it anywhere else. It's in basic education. If there's anything that we need to fix, we need to fix it in basic education. And to the best of my recollection, is that we have fixed our data. It's becoming much more credible. For instance, you'll see even in the grade 12 results, the final results do not vary much with the results that you get from even quarter 2 to quarter 3, which have proven to be much more reliable in terms of the data that we use. We also use data from Stats SA to inform our baseline. The Stats SA provide us with that data. I know your main concern is around infrastructure. I have said the problem that we've had a major assessment which was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers many years ago. Now, we've tried to get National Treasury to give us money to refresh the currency of that condition assessment of our infrastructure. We have not been able to find one another. But safe to say, Northwest out of its own arrangement has done condition assessment. Eastern Cape has also done its own condition assessment, and I think Mr. Mafuku can add. And really, towards the end of this financial year, you can say National Treasury has now allowed us to use some of the school backlog infrastructure grant, which will not be able to spend, to use it for condition assessment to improve our baseline as you'd want it to be, so that you get to know how many schools require maintenance and renovation, of what intensity, how many schools need rebuilding, how many schools have got toilets, how many toilets of the schools that we have provided are functional, and so on. Condition assessment will help us to do that. You need to do that on a regular basis, if I'm not mistaken, at least every 5 years, so that your baseline is kept up to date. Right, I'm trying to move fast because some of this minister has covered. DPME, we are working with DPME already. In terms, they use our data. We also use the data that they get from other empirical exercises that they carry out. We work closely with DPME, but would appreciate if you say to them, they must work even much closer with us, which will be fine. I've spoken to the 300 million from school backlog grant to workbooks. That infrastructure must be a separate program. It's under program 4. I'm sure we can take that discussion, but I don't think it will make a major difference. The real challenge, Honorable Chair, is that provinces are budgeting very little or nothing for infrastructure. That's the core of the problem. That's the meat of the problem. Provinces are budgeting very little or nothing from the equitable share for infrastructure. Provinces depend on education infrastructure grant, and that is wrong, because the grant is supposed to be temporary and not permanent. But the way things are, you pull out this grant, there's no money for infrastructure in the majority of provinces. And my humble plea and my humble submission is that help us to get provinces to put enough financial resources for infrastructure, which they are not doing. Update on the implementation of the AGSA, we can come up. I mean, the findings of the AGSA, we put them on the performance agreements of all senior managers reporting to me. But other than that, I've just told you that schools that the AG said final accounts and closeout reports, we are out to push them to make sure that come the next cycle of reporting, you don't have such coming to you again. Non-payment of the department to the military veterans, I think there are issues there. Dr. Whittle can say something. We've also discovered that there were instances of fraud in the claims that were made for children and families of military veterans. And we are working with that department and making sure that where the needs are legitimate, we do respond to them. But I'm sure Dr. Whittle can add in some of the challenges that we experience in terms of our contribution to families of children of military veterans. Honorable Sharif, I immediately contacted the HOD of KZN, and he then responded by saying to me they did attend to financial challenges that special schools were facing. NAPTOSA had raised the matter with me as well, and I did forward that response from the HOD of KZN to NAPTOSA as well. They did indeed face some financial challenges, contemplating to closing those schools and sending learners home. But the HOD then indicated to me that this matter was indeed attended to. The Minister has addressed the issue of G20 decisions, measures in the department of applying to monitor infrastructure. I've indicated that Mr. Mafuko is doing his monitoring. I'm doing my monitoring. Provinces are also doing monitoring. And we are also trying to coordinate all of this. we've got the project support unit, which is also doing monitoring. How is the department measuring the new protocol on pooling? I'm sure Dr. Whittle can help me to respond to that. We need to look at trends. Yes, indeed. How is DBE ensuring that transport is that is delivering learners is roadworthy? There are two provisions of transport. There's a publicly provided transport by government. We have a duty to ensure that that is paid for and it's roadworthy. Privately procured transport is paid for by parents. All that we can do is to work with the Department of Transport to ensure that the vehicles are roadworthy. And I can almost bet on this one. Many of these transport facilities that are not roadworthy are privately procured. I've come across many of them, and I've taken this up with my counterpart in the Department of Transport. He has assured me that he is indeed attending to some of these facilities, Honorable Sheriff. Honorable Shikwambana, progress report on the national school safety. Dr. Whittle will also help in that regard. Oh, the pit latrines was also covered by Chair. I think you are right. The 98% is cumulative from the 3898, which went over 4 million. Schools with facilities which were inappropriate and unsafe. So it's not necessarily what was covered in the 7th administration. And Mr. Amafuku, I think, will help us just to indicate the figures of what was covered in the 7th administration. I think the minister would have covered the one on extension for public comment. It was as per the request. There was a request which we had to accede to. There was no reason for us not to accede to the request of the extension. How many schools are affected by storms to the extent of even impacting on exams? We have an exam meeting every morning at 6 o'clock up to 7 o'clock. This morning, we had our meeting starting from 6 up to 8:45, because we even brought provinces and other officials as we move towards the end of the exams. Exams has not been affected by the inclement weather, which I had to drive through as well as I was doing my work in areas that are even flooded. I'm sure, Honorable Shikwambana, you'll be happy to learn that exams was unaffected and provinces have managed, and schools and districts have developed means of dealing with this. We share with them the weather report, and we even ask parents and schools to even take the decision where is advisable for learners not to go to school for their own safety. And they are able to do that, and they are managing that together with provinces exceptionally well. The issue of Funza Lushaka, we used to exclusively absorb NSFAS graduates, not NSFAS, sorry, Funza Lushaka graduates. CAM took a decision about 3-5 years ago to say we must treat all teacher graduates from different sources the same, including those that are funded by parents. The Funza Lushaka graduates should not get preference anymore. And that is happening across our districts and across our schools. Placement of Funza Lushaka teacher graduates, I'll ask Mr. Faker or Ms. Lalamaje, if she's in the meeting, she can help us help us to break down the graduates that we get from NSFAS and other sources other than just Funza Lushaka. Honorable Law, delays in infrastructure projects and data quality, I've spoken to that. And part of the problem is using implementing agents. And I think it's Honorable Mkhize, if not you, Honorable Low, where you refer to framework agreements. We've come up with framework agreements which will offer us an alternative to implementing agents that are not performing. Some provinces have started to use that already. Challenges around National School Nutrition Program. Dr. Whittle is on the platform. He'll help us to deal with that. Underspending in infrastructure grant. It's school backlog grant in the main that is underspending. And simply because Treasury restricted us from adding more projects to the existing ones, we are likely to underspend. We said to National Treasury, we have more needs out there, and we were not allowed to add more projects. And the likelihood is that we might not be able to spend all of that once we finish all the projects that we have. Implementing agents who fail to perform, we cut dealing with them. In other words, we don't do business with them anymore. I've given you names of those that we don't do business. We don't allocate projects to them anymore. And we use the alternative of the framework agreement as well. Honorable Jordan, ELNA, to inform interventions, indeed, is not only about access, but it's also about quality. Learners who are ready for schooling, we use ELNA to go retrospective to address issues of quality also in ECD, particularly grade R. But Ms. Gay and the team are on the platform. They can articulate this much more extensively and even better. Reading and learning outcomes. Indeed, there is more, and responding to what the chair is saying, it could be that we've reduced monitoring there because monitoring is not only done by DBE, but it's also done by provinces and districts. And scaling it down from DBE does not necessarily mean that attention is no longer given to reading, but instead we focus on those who are supposed to monitor at provincial and district level, but having the same, if not better outcomes. Which PEDs underspend on the NSNP? I said the CFO will help us with that data.
Thank you, DG. Are you done with the responses? DG? Members, honorable members, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Chairperson.
Okay. DG, are you done with your responses as a department? Okay, seemingly we lost the DG. Honorable members, I'm going to give just this opportunity for, if there is follow-ups, if there are questions that we believe they're not responded to. There was a specific question about the investigation of the Western Cape department. If I missed the response, I apologize, but can I just get some confirmation on if this issue was responded to? And I'm going to allow members some just a few. I'm going to really monitor that you are very short and brief, because it is not a second attempt to ask questions. It's really follow-ups. So I'm going to be very strict on the allocation of time. I'm going to start with Honorable Sharif, Honorable Jordan, and then Honorable Shikwamban.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Apologies, I am just in transit. But I just wanted to check with the DG. He spoke about that he has the list of provinces I think it's very important that he shares that with us. I also just didn't understand what he, around the KZN issue. The DG said he spoke with the HOD, but he didn't really give that much details. So if I could just have a little bit more on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG. I think it is actually the decision of this committee that on the KZN issues, please do submit a comprehensive written response, because we do want to know the interventions that are in place, because that PED is really facing dire strains. So we want to know comprehensively what are the interventions in place. Honorable Jordan.
Thank you, Chairperson. I might be mistaken, but I think I heard the DG referring or delegating a couple of his responses to other officials in the department, particularly Dr. Whittle. So perhaps we could also give them a chance to respond to some of the questions that were initially posed.
Thanks, Honorable Jordan, but I did call out to the department, I think 3 times, and they kept quiet. I asked 3 times if they are done, and none of the officials that are on the platform, because I think the DG got disconnected, actually indicated that they still have outstanding responses, but we will give them an opportunity to respond. Honorable Shkwambana, I see, Mrs. Mbudi, I see your hand is up. Do you want to share any information?
No, it must be
before Honorable Shkwambana, Mrs. Posh.
Chair, sorry, it must be an old hand.
Okay. Honorable Shkwambana.
Thank you very much.
You can mute Mrs. Posh. Okay, continue, Honorable Shkwambana.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think, Chair, I want to, before I can raise my follow-up, I want to propose that next time, or we should adopt a strategy of being allocated minutes. We ask question, the person who are asking question answer just immediately or direct after we've answered the question, because deliberately these people are not answering our questions, and if they answer our questions, they're not answering what we are asking them. On 2 things. I asked the question about the 98% of the pit toilets directed to the minister. You also touched on it, but mine and yours was totally different, but we were asking about one thing. I said, I want her to give us a breakdown of this 98% achievement. And she must break it down per provinces, particularly in the Eastern Cape, because my interest is in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. That was my question, and it was never answered at all. Secondly, the issue of the extension of the submission of the regulations. The DG says to us that there was a request for the extension. And my question exactly was, what was the reason behind the extension request? What is the main reason for this request for extension that made them not to consider anything else but to accept for the extension? What was the reason? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shkwambana. It's fine, members. I think we can consider this approach. We've tried it before. The reason why we had to really just change it or amend that approach of asking questions directly and receiving responses before we move was the time it took, because then members would want to ask follow-up questions. Other members would want to ask follow-up questions on a question that is asked by another member. So it created a bit of a challenge. However, we can, Honorable Shkwambana, look at that approach. I think we can try the approach. There's nothing wrong with that approach, because actually the intent of this platform is that members must receive responses on questions they ask. I'm going to hand over to the department to continue with the responses. Just make sure that you respond to the 3 questions that we've just highlighted that they were not responded to. DG, who is going to continue with the responses? Okay. Who is continuing from the department with the responses?
Chair, maybe I should.
Okay. Dr. Whittle.
Maybe I should start. I'm Granville Whittle. I'm DDG for Sector Care and Support. Chair, I think that the DG is probably kicked out of the meeting, which is why he's not responding. And certainly the issue of the comprehensive response you're asking for in KZN is something that we'll bring to his attention. I'll deal with the safety issues as well as the NSNP ones. Honorable Jordan has asked about missed feeding days. We through our monitoring, and we've got quite a comprehensive monitoring system for school nutrition. We do, on average, about 50,000 school visits in a year. We employ about 540 individuals around the country directly through the grant. And they use a monitoring tool that we call MRR, monitoring response and reaction. Monitoring, reaction, and reporting. And through this system, we know that about 6% of schools on a daily basis miss their feeding days. They miss them for all sorts of reasons. Honorable Jordan, whether it's a funeral, an incident at the school, a sports day, but we continue to monitor those to ensure that as soon as that disruption has happened, that the program is restored. We have been concerned about the Northern Cape, who seems to have taken a step back, over the last financial year in particular, around the implementation of the program. The Northern Cape is one of the decentralized provinces that we have, which means that they transfer their funding directly to the schools. And we have picked up instances also, as Minister said earlier, where the AG would find that feeding did not happen on particular days. What is more widespread is not non-feeding, but feeding that doesn't comply strictly to the menu. So, for example, if a school is supposed to serve 3 food groups, they might, on a particular day when the monitors are out, not be serving the protein component of the menu. And again, there it means that we have to work with them quite consistently to ensure that those issues are addressed. You asked a question about what is our advice on exams. We say to schools, you monitor the extent to which learners come to schools during exams and try and feed them accordingly. So we do find that in some of the provinces we have wastage on exam dates. And this is a matter that we're trying to address through the conditional grant framework for the next financial year, to make it clear to provinces that it's not necessary to serve at 100% if you, through experience at the school during exams, find that 50%, for argument's sake, would pitch up. Honourable Lowe asked about the food quality. It is a concern. We find often, particularly in the centralized provinces where you have service providers that are delivering to schools, you would find that the food is of an inferior quality. We have particular experiences around the provision of soya in our schools, where service providers add maize meal to bulk it up and to obviously save on cost. And it leads to a kind of a sludge when you cook it, and learners are very reluctant to have that. And so we've worked very specifically with manufacturers, service providers, but also with schools so that they're able to improve the monitoring of what is delivered. As part of a response to our concerns about food quality, for the next financial year, we will be introducing a products list, and service providers and schools will only be able to provide products that are approved by the national DBE to be on that list to schools. And so if for some reason a particular product is out of stock, they would have to get our permission to then add a different product. This products list system is already operational in one of the provinces, and it works quite well. And we were able to monitor it a few weeks ago. And so we think that that is one of the ways in which you improve the quality of the food that is provided. Then, Chair, Honourable Sharif, Honourable Shikwambana, and Honourable Lowe was asked about safety in schools, and particularly the National School Safety Framework. This framework has been operational in our schools for quite a long time now, more than a decade. And we initially were monitoring its implementation directly. We've done 2 school safety surveys through independent service providers, and those surveys showed that the implementation of the NSSF was effective in reducing levels of violence in schools. We also track the reduction or the trends in school violence through the General Household Survey, and of course then through the crime stats that are released by the Minister of Police. The General Household Survey shows that over the last 10 years or so, since about 2011, we have been able to reduce school violence with about 50% in schools. That does not mean that there is no violence in schools. And when we look at the General Household Survey, the one category that we monitor, which is one of the questions of Honourable Sharif, is we monitor corporal punishment in schools. Corporal punishment remains the highest category of violence that we have in our schools. The 2 provinces that have the highest levels is KZN, where about 20% of learners are saying they're subjected to corporal punishment, and the Eastern Cape, where about 12% of learners are saying. And so part of our response is directly to that. In terms of the NSSF, the protocol that we signed with the police, as members have indicated, we signed a new protocol with the police earlier this year. This protocol has added a new dimension in that we are isolating 4 provinces in particular, and these 4 provinces have the highest crime stats in the country. These are the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape. And we have identified 283 schools that have very, very high rates of crime and violence. We are currently doing provincial visits together with the police to develop safety plans for each one of these schools. We also ensure that there are functional school safety committees. And when we do these visits, we also do searches and seizures. These particular schools, these 283 schools, are schools that we will develop particular monitoring plans for. And over the next 2-3 years, we will monitor the implementation of the protocol in those particular schools. Then, Chair, this is the last one that I will respond to, is the psychosocial support question of Honourable Lowe. Psychosocial support is, like our President said during COVID, that mental health is really the second pandemic that we are dealing with. There's a number of interventions that we have going on at the moment, particularly working with the provinces to ensure that we are able to provide support to learners and teachers who require it. And it is an aspect that is also included in the integrated school health program that we're doing together with the Department of Health. This is a very new focus area for us as a department, but certainly, Chair, at some future date, we'd be more than keen to come and highlight these areas a bit more. Maybe I should hand over to the CFO now, Mr. Kuno.
Let's take Dr. Mbude, Ms. Geya, and then CFO, Mr. Mafoko.
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, Chair, honorable members, our minister, and everyone. Mine is just to provide responses for the question around mother tongue-based bilingual education and the assessment that we had yesterday and today.
Dr. Mbude is missing from my side, Chair. I'm not sure whether it's only my device.
Yeah, no. We've also lost Dr. Mbude as well. Can we try and get...
That's fine. We'll proceed with Mrs. Geya.
Okay. No. So it's Dr. Mbude and our own Sis Posh. Apologies. So when I saw the hand earlier, I thought it is our own content advisor. Apologies, Dr. Mbude. So that's why I can say Posh is there a hand.
No, that's the Mbude Mehana from our side.
Okay. No. Okay. Noted. Apologies to Dr. Mbude. So yes, we've lost her as well on the platform, DG.
She'll come back, Chair. Let's proceed with Mrs. Geya, if that's fine.
Yes, let's do that.
Thank you. Ms. Geya?
Yes, thank you very much, DG. So on the ECD data management and how we actually have information and what we are doing there, we have various sets of information we plug into, and we are either in the process of developing systems or we have already established data. I want to quote our Thrive by 5 recent report, which is a database that has information that gives us various information and helps us to inform our planning of what to go forward. The Thrive by 5 study in particular looked at, young learners and what it is beginning to show around those who are in the system in early learning programs and those who sit outside and what the impact is. It also gives us valuable information around continued stunting, which speaks to what we need to do within the system to correct those who come into ECD centers to help them, to eradicate problems of stunting, which is about providing nutrition programs to them at an early age. And we are busy with that in the department. And then we also have our e-care system. And the e-care system is another data management system that we have. This system helps us to plot and put all the Banapele registered centers into the system so that we're able to read the information, know exactly where these centers are located and what the status of the center is, whether it is bronze, which is just the entry level into the system, or silver or gold. And that information then tells us exactly what the situation is in terms of what is needed at the school to help the center to get to the next level, how to activate the various resources, either through donor funding or through the grant if they meet all the requirements, that is needed to get to the next level where we activate the grant. And that information is really what is the data sets that we have. They are quite advanced in the information, even although we have newly taken over the ECD from Social Development in 2022. We immediately started. So already with the Thrive by 5, it's our second report that we have got. The next thing we are going to do is another data set which we have, which is a census data set. And that information helps us to know detailed information about how many learners there are, how many centers there are, what the GPS locations of them are, how many practitioners are at the school, what the qualifications level is. And that information helps us to do also planning in terms of, what are the training programs we need to provide, what is the location and the extent of infrastructural arrangements that need to be provided in terms of how COCTA needs to come in to do maintenance within those centers, or what the DBE needs to do in terms of our own infrastructure program around, assisting these centers and helping them to be of a more stable nature, and also to build additional centers that are required as those indicators show. I think that is basically the details that I wanted to tell further from what DG had said around what we have available around data management and the various programs that there are to help the centers. And all of this, we go out and monitor and we track as well from the side of the department. We do visits. In fact, we are out into the field every week. Either we go with the minister and the DM, or we go ourselves to enable or track the situation and to help these centers to come on board. We encourage them in terms of the Panapele registration drive, or once they're registered, we are supporting them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Kaya. Mr. Faker, about the breakdown of NSFAS teacher graduates, do you have any data in that regard?
Thank you, DG. Mr. Bataki, will just give a short response. Thank you.
Okay.
No, thanks, DG, and thanks, Chairperson. The question around the number of graduates that have been absorbed between Q1 and Q2. In Q1, there were 600 absorptions all in all. There is, of course, a provincial breakdown, which constitutes about 32% of the absorptions. And then in Q2, there were about 812 absorptions. There is also a provincial breakdown, and that constitutes about 43.7%. The information around the absorptions of NSFAS, we don't have that information. I'm sure that information we can supply to the committee. There was a question also around the consequence management for the poor placement, and I think the DG has already outlined the decision of the CEM regarding prioritizing the absorption of Funza Lushaka graduates. And maybe one last question, DG, was about the issue around the reduction of the monitoring target, particularly around language and numeracy, as there are challenges there. Just to indicate that our monitoring is in two folds. We do
get reports from provinces in terms of the trainings that are happening in different subjects. But then the 27 districts is where we are visiting to do physical verification. So it's not that where we don't visit, there is no information that comes through. The visit is mainly meant to ensure that we verify the information that we are able to get from provinces. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Dr. Rabutapi. Mr. Mafuku, on infrastructure, in particular, the Eastern Cape that Honorable Shikombana also asked about. Mr. Mafuku.
Thank you, DG, and good day to Chair and members. With regards to the safe completion per province, we have 2 provinces that we are currently implementing at. It is the Eastern Cape and KZN. KZN, we are at 99%. So out of the 1,254 projects that were identified, we have completed 1,242. And in the Eastern Cape, we are at 96.7%. Out of the 1,434 projects that were identified, we have completed 1,387. And all other provinces, we are at 100%. And the total percentage, we are at 98.2%. We have completed 3,307 projects. And the last one, with regards to projects that we have completed since June last year, out of the 3,307 projects that we have completed, 148 were completed since June last year to date. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Mr. Mafuku. CFO.
Thank you, DG. I'll start with the issue that was raised by Honorable Mkhize about the fact that we are said to have spent or transferred funds 8% or more than 8% without coming to Parliament. This matter, Chair, talks to Section 43 of the PFMA. And in terms of that section, Chair, an accounting officer can transfer from one main division of a vote to another main division of a vote, as long as that is below 8%. So we need to just bear in mind that a main division of a vote is a program. So there's 5 programs. So the one program, program 4, where we transferred 300 million from, the total budget of that program is 17.5 billion. That's program 4. And 8% of that program 4, or 17.5 billion, is 1.4 billion. So what we transferred, which is 300 million, is 1.7% of that program. So it's not even close to the 8%. But on the converse, Chair, where we transferred to, even if the Act doesn't talk about where we transferred to program 2, the total budget of program 2 is 4.6 billion. And 8% of that is 375 million. And the 300 million that we transferred to that program is 6.4 million. So it's not correct that we transferred more than 8% of the budget. But what we did as well, Chair, is that this grant, which is within the 17 billion, this grant is said to be a specially designated fund where, before you transfer any funds from it, you need to approach Treasury, which we did by our letter dated the 24th of August 2025, and Treasury responded on the 15th of September 2025, giving us permission to do that transfer in terms of Section 51B of the Appropriations Act. Then the next item which I want to deal with is the underspending. That I think when I listened to Honorable Mkhize, he was talking about underperformance and underspending interchangeably. But our underspending, Chair, our figures are on slide 39. And the only underspending that we show in there is on goods and services, as well as payments for capital assets. And we've indicated that for goods and services is because workbooks are delivered in tranches. So the next tranche of workbooks is going to be for volume 1 for 2026 has not been delivered yet. So that's why the payments are staggered or they are delayed. But the second part of our underspending, which we have spoken about quite at length, is on the ASIDI grant, the SIBG grant, and it has been covered as to why we underspending there. Then the performance on conditional grants. Incidentally, Chair, we had a CEM, Council of Education Ministers, this past Friday, where we presented to them, to the CEM, the spending, budget and spending up to the 31st of October, which if you look at the year, it's about 58% of the year. Overall, all conditional grants overall had spent 60.9%. That is overall, but individually, there are conditional grants which were underspending, and I'll just indicate which ones. In different provinces. I won't indicate. I'll talk to it. For example, LSPID, the learners with special disabilities, were spending at 47.3% overall. I think, and on others, for example, ECD conditional grants, you would find that one province is overspending, but another is not. But what we did, what we presented to CEM was reasons from the provinces. Each province had to give reasons why they are underspending and what turnaround strategy do they have. We've got those slides, Chair, if we could share them with yourselves, so that I don't go through every province. For example, Free State will show that the reasons for under ECD maintenance, under EIG, under, so you have 9 provinces, each showing a particular grant where they are underspending and what they are going to do to turn it around before the end of the year. But another question that came up was along the lines of what do we do? What if I had it well, we've got, for every grant, we've got teams for every grant which go out to do grant monitoring. And we monitor the performance together with the provincial officials. But over and above that, our bigger tool is the Division of Revenue Act, which says you only transfer so much. We transfer in 4 tranches. But if there's underspending, and then the underspending is persistent, we then have, in terms of the Division of Revenue Act, a section which allows us to withhold a transfer for not more than 30 days until corrective action has been taken. In the worst case scenario, we even have a situation where should corrective action not be taken and we see that the grant is going to underspend in one province, but overspent in another province, then what we do, Chair, I'm just closing, Chair, what we do, Chair, is in terms of the Division of Revenue Act. Can you still hear me, Chair?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. In the worst case scenario where there's no corrective action, but in one grant, one province is overspending while another is underspending, we are allowed, in terms of the Division of Revenue Act, to shift the funds around so that overall we don't take money back to Treasury when in fact it could have been spent in the in the sector. It's only in a situation where, for example, DG has mentioned the one grant where there's underspending throughout. So you cannot use that tool to transfer money from one province to another because there are no takers, basically. Thanks, DG.
Thank you. Chair, I don't seem to see Dr. Mbude Mehana on the platform, who was kicked out. Let me then, because Chair, you had also requested the Minister to bring the meeting up to speed about the rounding off of the administration of the National Senior Certificate exams and the commencement of marking. Indeed, our exams are coming to an end. We'll be left with a few papers where there's a rewrite, like CAT, where learners tried to save their work and it got lost, and other papers where learners were prevented from writing because of circumstances beyond their control. There are a few of those papers who will probably be written up to the 4th of December. Pre-marking started on the 15th of this month with 9 marking centers, 5 in Gauteng, 3 in Limpopo, and 1 in Mpumalanga. We have visited all of those centers. Marking commenced, and it has been concluded in Mpumalanga and Gauteng, except only, I think, for one center in Limpopo, which was to conclude today. We're getting daily updates of these activities. We analyze them and we provide support. From the 28th of this month, marking will begin in earnest. 184 marking centers will begin with marking. We will be going out to visit those centers, and because of that, we'll be engaged in those activities of supporting the marking centers. And the main focus is about the wellness of all of those who are involved in marking, a conducive environment for them to do this work, making sure that facilities that they are marking in are appropriate, but also providing security to the markers and their belongings, which is what we talk about. And we'll be continuing with our 6 o'clock meeting every day as we monitor marking centers until we finish with marking and getting into standardization. As you would be aware, standardization will happen on the 22nd of December. But before then, we'll also be engaging in pre-standardization meetings with individual provinces where we are getting experts per paper, giving us their analysis and how they've encountered these papers and juxtaposing that with how learners have encountered the papers, having marked the scripts of learners, and to even look at areas of unfairness, which would present to Umalusi on the 22nd of December for Umalusi's consideration. So that is an update, Chair, on the National Senior Certificate and marking. Thank you very much for affording us the privilege. Questions that we might have not answered in full, we will do what you'd usually direct us to do, to forward the responses in writing, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I see
Thank
Mr.
Thank you very much.
Kunu's hand is up.
DG.
And Honorable Sikwambana, over to you, Chair.
DG, I am the chair. Don't do that. The chair is me.
Indeed. There's no confusion about that.
No, there's a coup. I see a coup. I see a coup.
No ways, Chair.
DG, I don't know. I said if I have missed it, the question on the Western Cape investigation, if I've missed it, just clarify me. that I missed the answer, the response.
Chair, this is how the minister responded to the question on the investigation. The minister said she'd be happy to get the allegations on racial profiling on admission for us to investigate. But she also said she would also encourage the committee to consider its own investigation as well. That's how the minister responded to this matter.
Okay, so in essence, the department is refusing to conduct this investigation.
That's not my understanding, Chair. My understanding is that the minister is requesting for allegations to be investigated.
No, that's my understanding, and I'll tell you why it is my understanding, DG. These allegations were made in a meeting where there was the DBE, where there was the department, where there was a parent representing an organization. It was in that platform. And in that platform, we did say that there is a number of allegations. Now, the department can't, after keeping quiet for this many months after we've given that directive, say now that you want cases of those allegations. We are saying this is a perception of many of the parents in the Western Cape. Now, when you want to deal with the perception, and we even were clear on what we want you to do, we said we want you to go and evaluate a sample of admissions patterns, applications versus patterns in certain schools that are perceived to be preserved for certain races. That's what we said. So it can't be now. That response, it's just saying we don't want to. And we want you to put it on record as the department. Put it on record and say we don't want to investigate it. That's fine. But I don't think saying no, also the committee shouldn't consider doing its own investigation. When the committee said, well, as a department, can you conduct this investigation and give us a report? So we should consider it to say the department is refusing to do that investigation. The second issue, DG, DG, Honorable Shkwambane raised a question, a follow-up question on the request made for the extension of the BELA regulations. We want to know who has made this request and what was the nature of this request, because it affects the implementation and it affects the conclusion of the regulations process. So we want to know the nature of that request that prompted the department to delay this process further than it has been delayed. So I think that is a specific question that I have not had a response to, unless if the department says they want to respond in writing. I see hands of honorable members, although I had said that there was a last round of follow-ups. I am tempted to say to members, because we must now conclude this session so that we go to questions and we can conclude that if there is specific questions that are not responded to members, can I request that we submit those questions to Mr. Brown so that these questions can be responded to in writing? So that is the ruling on the matter. Honorable Shkwambane, Honorable, it's 7 days, Honorable Sharif. 7 days, 7 working days. I do receive responses, unless if members are saying they've not been receiving written responses. I do receive written responses on many other issues, and we go through those written responses. Honorable Shkwambane, Honorable Mkhize, Honorable Yodan, your follow-up questions where you have not been responded to, submit those in writing. Honorable Shkwambane, you're not recognized, so please mute. Submit them in writing. The department is tasked to provide written responses within 7 working days. So please, let's lower our hands in that regard. DG, we are agreeing that please do submit written responses within 7 working days. We will coordinate those questions that members believe they are not adequately responded to, and we will send them to yourselves. Please do respond. And Mr. Brown, this was the only item on our agenda. Was this the only item on our agenda, Mr. Brown?
Chairperson, that is correct. Despite some minutes, there's about 3 sets which we have sent members, but this was the only item on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. DG, thank you, because now you are leading the team. Thank you very much to you and the team for your attendance and for the deliberations and for the responses. We are looking forward to receiving those written responses. And of course, we are noting the progress that is being registered, although, of course, we hope that the department addresses the concerns that have come out in this meeting. So I'm going to release yourself and the team, and so that we can continue as the committee to deal with the minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and long live the Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you very much, DG. Honorable members, let's deal with the minutes, with the set of minutes. Mr. Brown, can you please flight the set of minutes that we ought to deal with? Let's flight the first set of minutes. Okay, these are the minutes of the meeting of the 4th of November, 2025. This is, Mr. Brown, go up. So this is a meeting where we received an update or a report from the ELRC on its role and functions in addressing sexual misconduct and harassment within schools. And we also received a briefing by the South African Council of Educators on professionalization interventions. Honorable members, we have received these minutes in time. I just want to check if members want to make amendments or corrections on these minutes. Let's go up, Mr. Brown. Seemingly there is no amendments on this page. Let's go to the other pages. Most importantly, let's go to, yes, let's go up. Okay, so there is no amendments or corrections to the set of minutes. Can we then move for the adoption of these minutes, Honorable Law?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move for the adoption as they do reflection because I would have went through them, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Law. Honorable Ngobeni?
I second the adoption, Chair. Thanks.
The minutes actually adopted. Let's go to the second set of minutes. Honorable members, so this is the set of minutes on that of the meeting that was held on the 11th November 2025. This is the minutes of the meeting of the inquiry we held in the NCOP chambers on the statutory rape inquiry with stakeholders. I do know that we've adopted already the report in terms of this minutes. So it should be very easy for us to really just link this minutes with the report that we've already adopted. I went through the report. I went through the minutes. I think the team did well in capturing the engagements. But members, if there is any amendments members want to make or corrections on this minutes, I am noting hands. Honorable Ngobeni.
I also went through them, Chair. I move to adopt.
Okay, Honorable Ngobeni is moving for the adoption of the minutes. Honorable Low.
Chair, I second the adoption of the minutes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The minutes are duly adopted. Mr. Brown, do we have another set of minutes? Okay, these are the minutes we held with. These are minutes of the meeting we held with provincial education departments. The difficulty with these minutes, I think it's a minutes of the first meeting. The difficulty with these minutes is that, is it that of the attendance of only 3 members, or it's not that those ones? Mr. Brown?
No, Chairperson, that was the first round.
Okay. Okay.
This was the second round.
Okay. Okay. So, honorable members, these are the minutes of the meeting we held with for the Free State, the Northern Cape, PED, and Northwest. Can members indicate if they want to correct the minutes or make amendments on the minutes? Okay, in the absence of any corrections, amendments, can we, I want to note hands that want to propose an adoption of these minutes. Honorable Shkwambana.
Thank you, Chair. I move for the adoption of the minutes as they are.
Okay, Honorable Shkwambana moves for the adoption. Any seconders?
A second, Chair.
Honorable Magagula seconds the adoption of the set of minutes. Mr. Brown, are those, was that the last set of minutes?
Thank you, Chairperson. Those were the last set. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Shkwambana, I see your hand is still up. Is it an exigency?
It's an exigency.
Okay. Let's take your exigency.
The department, when they come here, they must learn to answer our questions. Let me tell you what is going to happen with this issue of the regulations. Now, they're not going to respond to my question. And I think you know why they are running away of answering this question, because they know what they did there. And because they want to protect a certain things that they want to protect, and we might even expose them. They don't want to tell us who actually requested and what was the reason and the nature of the request. They are not going to respond even if we can write. We know them. So when we have them in a corner, they must answer to us, because they ran away with that thing now. But I'm going to ask them again in our next meeting, because they are running away with this thing.
Okay, Honorable Shkwambana, I understand your sentiments. The reason why on this specific matter I felt they ought to submit written responses is because, as you are saying, that we are going to be focusing on the regulations in our next meeting. So I was hoping that we can start applying that. We can start applying a different approach to the session of questions and discussions as you had proposed. So in the next meeting, we'll try that approach. We're going to try an approach of asking a question, allowing a member or allocating a member minutes so that you ask questions and you get responses on the spot. I think we're going to do that so that we are also on the same par with what the response was and what the response means. So I think we will be able to do that in the next meeting. So it's just next Tuesday, Honorable Shkwambana. I also am interested in hearing the responses on this request and the nature of the request. So let's agree to say we are going to have an opportunity next week to discuss the regulation, the BELA regulations, comprehensively.
Chair, can I add?
Yes, Honorable Mkhize, you are adding on this discussion of the approach to questions or on the issue of the regulations.
Chair, I think because it is us now, let us ease up and have a general conversation as committee members without too much restrictions, because we need to also assist you, Chair, to make this committee effective. I share the sentiment by Honorable Law and Honorable Shkwambane. And I'm going to repeat what you know very well, Chair, that when the executives, they easily surrender to responsibilities placed on them to change the material conditions on the ground. As a committee, you carry responsibility to remind them of their powers, remind them of their authority and resources, and level of trust put in them to deliver, and do not allow them, Chair, to escape that level of scrutiny. This thing of avoiding questions and saying they will be responded to in writing takes away privilege to engage and probe to the point that an understanding is achieved. So I hear you.
The reason why I wanted to get a clarity as to the addition you wanted to make is because, as I had indicated, we need to close the session. Now, you are repeating what we've already agreed on, that we need to review an approach of the discussions of this question responses session. And I've already admitted that we're going to review the approach to enhance the level of responses that are
Chairperson, I think we may have lost you for a few seconds.
Members, while the chairperson is still recovering wherever she is, I do propose that on the day we review, because I see now I'm being shut down, I can't make the point I want to make. May I then propose that on the day we review our approach, there are no restrictions, we're able to talk as committee members, for us to be able to share our experiences and ideas, because, you know, this thing of being shut down during the meeting and after reflection, you're also being shut down, I think it's going to get frustrating at a certain point. Yeah, let me end there.
Yeah, but I think we're not shut down. We should be mindful of the time. We should agree on dedicating a special day to deal with such, because we should be aware that members, some are physical, some are not. And also in our deliberations, we don't have time limitation. So I would not want to agree that it's a deliberate shutdown. It's a time management shutdown that seeks us to say, let's have special days. If we're agreeing that on Fridays we're able to direct and engage on such, let's give our time the whole day and deal with such, because we did take a resolution last time to say we will deal with the resolution tracking and will make time. So I share the sentiments with yourself, and I think the chair was trying to say we would have to readjust and agree on such an approach, which it will assist us. So we should be mindful of such. I don't know where's the chair, and I'm worried.
I am here. I'm back.
Thanks. Okay, no, thanks.
Sorry about that. I got cut off abruptly. Thank you very much, Honorable Law, for taking over. So I was saying, members, I have already acceded to the fact that we need to change an approach based on the concerns members have on the quality of responses that we get from the department. And I've already committed prior the edition, Honorable Mkhize, that in the next meeting, starting with the next meeting, we are going to then start with that approach. But we cannot deny the executive an opportunity to submit written responses because that is allowed. That we cannot deny. But to enhance the quality of responses, I do agree with members that perhaps we need to change how we ask questions so that there are no questions that are lost in the track because there would have been many questions that came up. So I do acknowledge that. Lastly, perhaps, honorable members and honorable Mkhize, we can schedule in our next term, in the next program, some form of a session where it is an in-committee session where we can discuss how do we believe that we can enhance our meetings, our weekly meetings, how we can enhance the quality of the interface between us and the department. So that we can do, I think that is fine, so that, as you are saying, we help each other to make the committee effective, so that we can do. Honorable Ngobeni, is it any addition on this one?
Thanks, Chairperson. I just wanted to, I think we spoke about this at some point or other. I really think it would be prudent if we can try and really incorporate in committee meetings for every meeting. I mean, we meet at 9 o'clock. If we can have between 9 and 10 an in committee meeting dealing with whatever is on the subject of the day, and also just have a short briefing by our content advisor as to what we will be dealing with in each meeting. I think that will be helpful, Chairperson, so that we're not running almost helter-skelter and we have time with each other, because as it stands, we really haven't had that. And I think the resolution tracker also is a very important element to the work that we've got to do. My suggestion, honestly, would be that we incorporate in committee meetings, even if it's 45 minutes to an hour, if we're starting at 9 o'clock, so that we are sharper in our deliberations with each and every stakeholder and each and every meeting. That's my move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ngobeni. I think that's an addition to us checking what other ways we can enhance our effectiveness as a committee. And I think let's agree that in committee session, we should agree to incorporate it in our next term program. As I know that at some stage I did propose that we have a study group of the committee. So perhaps let's have that in our next program so that we are on par and we agree on the different ideas that are on the table to improve and enhance our effectiveness. With that said, honorable members, it's 1 o'clock. So thank you very much for your attendance, for your participation. We will meet for the very last time next week. We will try and draft the next term program and circulate it so that when we do meet, we are able to also adopt the next term program. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues.